This is the story of an absolute being, a person from Earth who reincarnated into another world. On his path of conquest, he had conquered many dimensions, proving himself the strongest. Even the dragons that drove the continent into terror, the Demon King and the 7 Archdukes of the Demon Realm, the Heavenly Demon and the Alliance leader of the martial world, the Spirit King who guards the World Tree, were no match for him. Though he went on this path of conquest in order to find his way back home, his way back to Earth, despite over 300 years of searching, he still didn't find a way. Tired of it all, he decided to go into eternal slumber with the aid of a magic created by his underlings. But unfortunately, that magic, which was supposed to put him into eternal slumber, somehow brought him back to Earth, where he ended up becoming a father. If you like this story, don't forget to break the like and subscribe. Also comment your thoughts about this story. Now, the story begins as Shaltir von de Crapsley, Prime Minister of the Annex Empire. Rather than reigning as the king of vampires, he chose the true joy of serving his lord as a loyal retainer, and so he dared to record the infinite achievements his lord had accomplished. It all began one day when a figure suddenly appeared from another world and conquered the Onyx continent. With a single strike, he took down the dragon who dared challenge him and all other beings, finally reigning over the Onyx Empire as the great emperor. Crapsley stepped forward and congratulated his lord for conquering all dimensions and putting them beneath his feet. He was truly delighted for him. But the lord, who is the protagonist of this story, told Crapsley that he has yet to conquer all dimensions because, in the end, no one knows anything about his homeland. From the day our protagonist appeared to the day he conquered the vast continent took only 50 years. He is the one who can command millions of the dead with mere thoughts and possesses martial prowess to split mountains and part seas with a single sword strike. He is now known as the Emperor of the Onyx Empire, a catastrophe beyond measure who descended from another world. People called him immortal, the king of the dead who rules over the living. No one was more worthy of all those titles than him. Before his overwhelming power, countless beings knelt down. Those insolent ones who resisted him to the end became undead and swore eternal loyalty. The dragons that drove the continent into terror, the Demon King and the 7 Archdukes of the Demon Realm, the Heavenly Demon and the Alliance leader of the martial arts world, the Spirit King who guards the World Tree. No one and nothing could match our protagonist, the great lord of the Annex Empire. Naturally, all dimensions connected to the Annex continent lay beneath his feet. Crapsley continued his recording. But how could we lowly beings fathom his will? What he truly desired was something else. To return to Earth, his homeland, that was all. And so, after wandering through all dimensions, unable to find a way back home, he summoned all his vassals and spoke. He said to them, "I am very weary. I wish to fall into a deep sleep now." His vassals were surprised by his words. They worriedly told him they would continue to search for a way to return home. Our protagonist asked them, "What use would it be even if I returned home? Nearly 300 years have passed since I left my homeland. The family and friends I miss so dearly have all grown old, fallen ill and passed away. I'm too late. So from now onward..." He stood up as he walked forward. "You all should only focus on finding a way for me to enter eternal rest." And so he left the hall. That day, the sound of weeping never ceased within the palace, but no one could disobey his command. Eventually, the senior liches of the palace created a crushing magic circle that would devour everything. Our protagonist walked alone towards the magic circle. The only words he left behind were, "Now I can meet everyone," but Crapsley immediately followed him from behind as he stepped forward into the magic circle, wanting to serve him even in death. As the two stepped inside, the magic circle activated. A light shone brightly as if about to devour them whole. And so, Crapsley thought everything had ended, but a loud voice came scolding Crapsley as soon as the light turned on. "Hey, why are you sitting here with the lights off?" Crapsley panikedly covered his face. The voice was that of our protagonist, now with a baby in his hand. He told Crapsley that when he is at home he should stop being stingy and just leave the lights on. Crapsley replied back nervously, "I humbly report that even the faintest candle shines brighter than the sun on the darkest nights." "Look at you with that quick comeback," our protagonist retorted. "If you're going to say, 'I humbly report,' then don't say it at all." Crapsley didn't say further. He then asked our protagonist why he hasn't gone to bed at this hour. "Are you making fun of me right now?" our protagonist scolded. "I can sleep when the baby sleeps." Immediately, Crapsley bowed, telling our protagonist to please kill him for being gutsy. Our protagonist told him to keep his voice down. He'd make the baby cry. Yeah, of course, the baby began to cry, as she held on to our protagonist tightly. Our protagonist immediately told Crapsley to deal with the situation since he made her cry. But then, he asked Crapsley why she was crying again. Crapsley told him that perhaps she wished to eat. Our protagonist replied that he had already fed her. Crapsley suggested again to check her diapers, but he already cleaned it dry. Crapsley was defeated. His knowledge couldn't fathom the reason why she was crying. Well, seeing Crapsley as no help at all, he went to meet his sis. And so, Crapsley continued his journaling, but then he was called out that his sister ordered late-night snacks for them. His eyes sparkled with excitement. He stood up courageously and immediately ran out to eat the chicken, leaving the journal on the table and a particular page opened. Due to the magic circle's failure, my lord finally returned to his homeland he longed for so deeply. However, here there was something my lord, who never even had a lover let alone married, could never have imagined. And that is the little princess. Now they were both drinking Coca-Cola and eating chicken bought by his sister. Crapsley told Subin with excitement on his face that the chicken is always delicious, he never gets tired of it. Subin politely told him with a smile to eat as much as he wants, then told our protagonist Gangjun that she can hold Seol and feed her baby food herself, so he should eat comfortably. And since he stayed at home today, he must still be really confused, she commented while cleaning the baby's mouth. He told her he's already plenty comfortable, and he's not confused at all. She refused, telling Gangjun that he must be very confused since he has gone through something like that. Gangjun told her he's fine so she should not worry, but she insisted, telling him not to pretend he's okay. She's just grateful that he came back alive. He disappeared during the first gate incident, so it's been years now since he was trapped inside the gate for all those years, and he only just made it home. That's why it would be strange if he was to say he is okay right away. Gangjun insisted, as I have said repeatedly. I wasn't trapped in some gate. I was suddenly summoned to a place called the Onyx continent. Yeah, you were some incredibly powerful emperor of some continent, right? She questioned with doubt. Gangjun confidently replied, Yes, exactly, because it's the truth. Our protagonist, Li Gangjun, Emperor of Onyx, gate survivor, currently unemployed. Subin said to him, Sure, whatever. And what about that elderly gentleman? Crapsley introduced himself as Shelter von de Crapsley. Simply put, Gangjun told her he was the advisor who helped with his duties and discussed state affairs with him. Crapsley, the Emperor's closest aide, gate survivor, currently unemployed, and also leeching off Subin. As for Lee Subin, she's Gangjun's older sister and a factory worker on a 3-shift rotation. Well then, she sighed, most gate survivors have complete mental breakdowns from PTSD or develop speech disorders. At least, she said with a smile, you two only seem to have delusions, so that's fortunate. Gangjun murmured to himself, even if she's my only sister, that's rather disrespectful. Treating me like some common lunatic. She patted his shoulder and told him it's okay. He came back after 3 years, so it'll be hard to adjust to society right away. But he has Seol, his daughter, and he is still young with a bright future ahead, so he should not worry and just focus on treatment or adjusting to Earth. She'll do her best to support him in the meantime. She also told Crapsley that he's welcome to stay with them as long as he needs until he can contact his family. Crapsley excitedly thanked her. All the while, Gangjun was speechless. He was looking at Lee Seol, his daughter, infant, also unemployed, all leeching from Subin. She was playing with a bone stick, so he told her he'd tie it for her. While tying it, he told the little girl that in the past, he used to weave the knots for the nooses used to execute those who committed serious crimes like treason. The little girl stuttered the word execute, trying to structure it together. He replied, Yes, execute. Watch carefully. His gaze was sharp and steady. He tied the rope on the bone, then said to her, When you weave a knot this securely, the neck snaps in one go. The bone broke. Subin shouted his name and asked what the hell he was saying to a child right now. Gangjun told her he was just trying to teach her as a father. She refused, told him to just stop and wipe Seol's face, and that he shouldn't tell her scary stories anymore. Gangjun sighed and replied, That would be difficult. He took the wipes and cleaned her face, and she fell asleep under her father's soft touch. Subin told him it seems she likes her daddy's touch so much. Gangjun stood up, told Subin he'd go put her down in her room, and come back. Minutes later, he put her on her bed as she slept soundly. He recalled Subin telling him that his daughter was born while he was gone. While he was missing, the baby's mother died during childbirth, but he couldn't remember since it was 300 years ago. Though now, he accepted her wholeheartedly. He recalled Crapsley asking him what he would want to do if he returned to his homeland. He replied, saying he would want to enjoy a peaceful daily life, live as an ordinary person quietly, as if he was invisible, unnoticed by anyone. Now, he wondered if raising his own child would also be one form of an utterly ordinary life. He then stood up. He noticed some papers on the table. A collection notice bills. And so, the next afternoon, Gangjin told Crapsley while feeding the baby that it seems like they've hit a major obstacle. Crapsley was surprised to hear the great absolute being, his lord, use the word obstacle. Gangjin told him to read the contents of the documents out loud. Crapsley did as instructed. He picked it up and started reading. Debt collection notice due to unpaid telecommunications charges. Notice of water supply suspension due to overdue water bills. Notice of electricity supply cut off due to unpaid bills. City gas payment notice and supply suspension alert. There were still more, but Gangjin told him to stop. Crapsley told him that the documents appear to be demands for payment. Gangjin replied, "Yes, correct. My sister didn't tell me, but it looks like our finances are a complete mess." Crapsley chuckled. "I don't know who dared demand payment from a member of the imperial family, but we could temporarily raise tax rates and impose progressive taxes on nobles and regional lords." Gangjin laughed out loud. He told Crapsley, "Though your ideas are great, you're seriously mistaken. If we were to compare our status on Earth to the class system of the Annex continent, we're basically slaves or commoners. We receive a pittance from the ruling class in exchange for intense labor and hard work, just barely scraping by to survive." Crapsley was shocked by this news. He couldn't believe his ears, even though he's a pure-blooded vampire who inherited royal blood and once rose to the position of vampire lord, leading his entire clan, and received the title of Archduke for his great and small achievements serving his lord. But in this world, he is a slave. The thought alone sent shivers down his spine. But he decided to calm down because a true retainer must show loyalty even in times of crisis. He then told Gangjin that he would devote his entire being to ensure that his empire rises again, here on Earth, and that he sits upon the throne once more. Gangjin told him to do that on his own. But first, they need to make money now. Now, the next day, Gangjin was feeding his daughter, but she refused to eat any further. Though Subin specially prepared the black sesame baby food, it seems it was not to her taste. Gangjin recalled the book he read. When a child doesn't want to eat, don't force them. To make eating an enjoyable activity, turn it into play. He thought of an idea, then told Subin they should play a game. He told her they should have a competition to see who can chew and swallow their food best. If she wins, he'll do whatever she wants and play with her all day. The little girl was excited by this offer, not knowing she was about to get scammed. Subin started feeding her. Gangjin grinned sinisterly at how slow she was. In the Annex continent crawling with all kinds of monsters. The reason Gangjin was able to rise as an absolute being after being dropped in the middle of it was because he gave his all even when hunting a single rabbit. And so, he started eating at an incredible pace, grinding his food with his teeth just like a grinder. He then said to the little girl, "Sorry, but at that speed, you can't beat your father." She was surprised to see he finished first, so she began to cry. Subin carried her and asked Gangjin why he is making her cry. He told her he wasn't trying to make her cry. He then told his daughter that if she's upset, she should get stronger. This also made her cry again, this time increasing the intensity. All the while, Crapsley was taking notes about Gangjin challenging the princess to an eating competition. He gave his all and achieved victory against the 3-year-old princess, and so future developments are somewhat concerning. Minutes later, while carrying Saul in his hand, he asked his sister if he can go out now. She was surprised he wanted to go out so suddenly, though she told him it's not a problem since she has the day off so she can watch Seol, but still, it's too soon for him to go out alone. Crapsley laughed and politely told Subin it'd be all right. He'll accompany him. Sometime later, they entered a bus. Gangjin recalled Subin telling him she doesn't have a single one when he asked. The neighborhood is a danger zone, so at least the rent is cheap. But even that gets deducted from the security deposit every month, so now she doesn't have money. He asked her how much she needs. She smiled it out, told him she'd figure it out somehow for now so he should not worry. She just wished the lottery ticket she bought this week would win like 1 billion won. Then they could move to a safer place, and she could focus on Seol until she finds a decent job since Seol is at the age when she needs lots of love and attention. Gangjin was relieved that at least money can solve the issue. He then told Crapsley that he has been thinking about something. For smooth economic activities going forward, he'll need a new name and identity. Crapsley was surprised to hear he'd be given a new name. Gangjun decided to give him a name suitable for Earth, so from now on, he won't be called Shaltair von de Crapsley. He'll be called Choi Dulceo. The weird name surprised Crapsley. Though he hasn't been on Earth for long, he knew the name sounds a bit bad. Gangjun asked why his face is like that. Doesn't he like the name? Dulceo humbly told him he likes it. Gangjun then asked why his face is like that again. The name Dulceo has been passed down for generations only to loyal retainers. Dul means rock, and Soe means steel. Altogether, it means he has a heart of steadfast loyalty. Hearing the meaning of the name, Crapsley, now Dulceo, was happy to be called that name. Gangjun was glad he liked it, but in truth, compared to the first name that came to his mind, Kim Gaetong, Dulceo is at least decent enough to use. Minutes later, they finally arrived at their location, and Gangjun told Dulceo they should get off the bus. As they walked, Dulceo humbly asked Gangjun where they were headed. Gangjun told him with brimming confidence that they're going to a gate today. Dulceo laughed and told Gangjun he made a brilliant decision since a gate is crawling with all kinds of monsters. Gangjun asked why he is excited. With a sinister smile and obvious evil thoughts, he told Gangjun that no matter how excellent a sword may be, if you don't draw it for a long time, it becomes dull and rusty. He's already excited to loosen up after so long. A battlefield, where blood and screams fill the air and life and death intersect. It's been so long since he felt such a thing. Gangjun brought him back to his senses. I think that might be difficult though, we're just going as porters. Surprised, Dulceo asked what he means by porters. Gangjun told him that in order to hunt in a gate, they need to get something called a license, and that costs quite $1,000,000 per person. Immediately, Dulceo went on his knees. My lord, no matter what, this is wrong. For you to work as a mere porter, please allow me to handle economic activities alone until our finances stabilize. Gangjun shyly told him to get up. What are you doing? Everyone's staring. They were mocking Gangjun for making an old man kneel like that. But Dulceo refused. Even if a blade comes to my throat, I absolutely cannot let you work as a mere porter. But then Gangjun got close to him and scolded with a sharp, killing tone. Do you really want to die? Get up now. Dulceo was fear-stricken as he realized his lord is angry. If he ignored the warning, he knew he'd end up like the heavenly demon, once the absolute being of the martial world, drooling into a bib. He immediately stood up, cleared his throat, and asked for forgiveness. Gangjun placed his hand on his shoulder, telling him that he knows about his burning loyalty. You should not worry. Porter work pays about 300,000 won a day, so after a few days covering utilities and license fees, we won't need to work as porters anymore. But then someone approached them and asked if they're by any chance the ones who applied to be porters for today's D-rank gate. Now, at the other side was the gate they were supposed to raid, guarded by armed guards. Gangjun looked around. He was surprised to see that even though a gate has opened, they're just walking around like nothing's happening. The guy, Hunter Kim Bonggu, C rank, introduced them porters to his fellow hunter, Hunter Lee Byongchul, C rank. Byongchul was quite disappointed. He asked Bonggu if he's saying the old geezer and scrawny kid are going to work as porters. Gangjun was speechless. Dulceo laughed slightly, told Byongchul that he may be old, but porter work is easy enough for him. He then introduced himself to the team. Byongchul didn't buy his words. He told him that even strong young men cannot handle porter work, so what can an old geezer and scrawny kid do here? Dulceo whispered to Gangjun, asking if he should kill them. Gangjun told him not yet. They need to work as porters for 3 or 4 days to earn money for the Awakener license. Dulceo remembered Gangjun had such deep intentions, and he almost made a grave mistake. Gangjun stepped forward and asked, who's the leader of the group? Bonggu raised his hand, saying he is the party leader. Gangjun asked if he is hesitating to hire them because they don't look reliable. Bonggu shyly replied yes. Gangjun said to him, we may not look it, but we're both confident in our strength. I guarantee we'll never get tired before you or slow you down. Bonggu was speechless. He wondered what he should do. With his mom's situation and his younger sibling too, he really needs money this week, and so he can't miss the gate. He then told Byongchul that he thinks they should leave with the 2 porters. Surprised, Byongchul asked him if he's serious. Bonggu replied, yes, it's a D-rank gate, so there shouldn't be any problems and the 2 of them should be enough. He whispered to Byongchul that actually, he needs to pay for his mother's hospital bills. his siblings' academy fees, and school trip costs this week. Byung-chul agreed since it's only a D-rank gate at most. He told him they should just be extra careful and go. Bonggu thanked him for understanding. Byung-chul shyly told him there's no need to thank him, they also have that ranked hunter too. Though he won't be of help to their combat power anyway, so if they have him carry luggage with the porters, it would solve the luggage problem. From their conversation, Gangjun realized there is one more person. Byung-chul then turned around, shouting at someone, "Hey, waist rank, why aren't you running? I just asked you to buy 1 cup of coffee." The guy, running and breathing heavily with coffee in his hand, gave Byung-chul the coffee. Gangjun wondered if you can treat hunters lower ranked than you like servants. Indeed, Earth has become no different from the Annex continent, where the strong prey on the weak. It somehow leaves a bitter taste. Byung-chul dropped his bag and asked, "Why isn't everyone getting ready? Or does it look like they are leaving tomorrow?" He told the waist rank to just fall back and help carry the luggage. There's no way that old geezer and the scrawny kid can carry luggage properly. The kid was about to refuse, but Byung-chul told him not to talk rubbish. They let him tag along and he dares talk back despite being a waist rank. Frankly, he'd just get in the way up front anyway. He then looked at Gangjun. "Hey, you clueless one." Gangjun asked if he's calling him a clueless one. He replied, "Yes, I am warning you, I don't have time to worry about your life in there, so don't slow us down." "Same goes for you, old man." Dulso was holding in his disgust. The guy's insolent behavior was getting on his nerves. The waist rank told Gangjun and Dulso that he'll carry the heaviest luggage. Even though he's an F rank, he's still an awakener. He may not help in combat, but he can easily handle a few bags. Gangjun told him okay, then picked up the small bag. He paused and stared at the guy. The guy asked shyly why he's looking at him like that. Gangjun then walked closer to him. He said to the guy, "Let me give you some advice. I really need to make money today, so I'm not interested in any troublesome business." The guy, surprised, asked Gangjun what does he mean. With a sharp tone, Gangjun told him to act thoroughly until the end today. He should keep pretending to be naive and weak just as he's doing now. He should just help them carry luggage and quietly go home. He then told Dulso they should leave. Minutes later, they arrived at the gate entrance. Gangjun saw Bonggu giving his info to a man. The man confirmed their details and confirmed their reservation for the gate near Guro Digital Complex Station, and they can now enter the gate. But he warned them that even though it is only a D-rank gate, there have been multiple deaths in it recently, and the Management Bureau has selected the place for investigation. Though the difficulty isn't high, they're not sure, and so, the 5 of them stepped into the gate. As soon as Gangjun stepped inside, a system message appeared. Starting player information registration. Quantifying players' combat power. Loading players' achievements. 80% loaded. Players' physical abilities exceed specifications, cannot load accurate values. Players' information registration complete. As they walked inside the gate, they saw dead trees around. Byung-chul commented, saying, "The place feels off somehow." He then asked Bonggu if it's true that undead-type monsters appear in the gate. Bonggu replied yes, and they need to clear it quickly. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of Gangjun. He had no idea what it was. From the panel, we could see that his class is Necromancer. He is currently at level 1. His titles are Ultimate Necromancer, SS rank, Dimensional Invader, SS rank, Demon Slayer, SS rank, Dragon Slayer, S rank, Plunderer of the World Tree, S rank. His strength is unknown, his agility unknown, his stamina unknown, his magic unknown, and divine power unknown. He has 0 unallocated stat points. His own vassals are also unknown. His player level is too low to summon vassals. Gangjun saw his level 1 to be complete nonsense because even he has trouble gauging his own strength. So he wondered who dared quantify it like that. What's more, he had no idea what the divine power he's seeing there meant. He also saw the titles that he obtained in Annex. He deemed them interesting since Ultimate Necromancer must be the title he got when his dark magic reached the 9th circle. Then Dimensional Invader is probably from when he inadvertently plunged multiple dimensions into crises while searching for a way back to Earth. And, as for Demon Slayer, though he hasn't counted them, the number of demon species he has personally killed must exceed several millions. The Dragon Slayer title must be from killing the dragon back then. And for Plunderer of the World Tree, he never expected them to make a title out of pulling the divine tree from the spirit realm. He just took it to plant in the palace garden because it felt empty. but he didn't know it would wither quickly. Something then caught his attention: owned vassals. He wondered if it meant he can summon the familiars he has made vassal contracts with. Not just also, but also the ministers of the imperial household palace, marshal's office and treasury. If he can summon them all to Earth, it would really be convenient. But then Bangchul shouted at him. He told Gangjun that they're about to enter a place where life and death hang in the balance, yet he's just spacing out from the start. Gangjun didn't say much. He told him they should move out. Byungchul told Bongu they should clear the dungeon quickly and leave this place, since it's really disgusting. Bongu agreed. Gangjun wondered if they should just follow them or deviate. As for Dolso, he whispered to Gangjun that the place feels surprisingly cozy. It's almost as if his weary body and mind are being healed. Gangjun also agreed. He thought to himself that this place must be where undead-type monsters appear. It's similar to the Deadlands, which were classified as forbidden zones on the Annex continent. He smiled at how refreshing and pleasant it's been for once since arriving on Earth. Bongu then told everyone to stop. It's time to work. Bongu activated his energy as they sighted undead from a distance. Bongu activated his magic and shot it at one of the undead, which immediately attracted the attention of the other undead. Gangjun was quite amazed to see them using magic against the undead. He deemed their battle to be interesting. Although it's lousy, at least it looks the part. Though they struggled a bit, they cleared the undead in that area. Bongu told the porters they should collect the magic stones and then move on. The porters did as instructed, picking the magic stones. And so, they continued their journey, but this time around, more of the undead appeared. Byungchul was the tank, while Bongu was the damage dealer. Byungchul was pissed since they kept coming out of nowhere, refusing to die, but then, Gangjun told him he'd better watch himself this time because there are some archers mixed in among the undead. Byungchul told him to stop saying nonsense, but then, to his surprise, multiple arrows were shot at them, and he was able to react in time to block them. But one arrow slipped past him, heading directly to Gangjun. They all thought it would kill him, but they were surprised to see he grabbed it before it could reach him. Bongu was surprised. Byungchul told him not to be surprised, he just got lucky. Gangjun slammed the arrow on the ground and asked if they're planning to keep spacing out like that. He scolded them, saying he almost got killed because of them. Bongu realized that Gangjun indeed almost died, but he wondered if him grabbing the arrow was really luck. Immediately, another horde of undead came charging at them, so Bongu decided to take care of them before thinking about whether it was luck or not. While the two were fighting, Gangjun was flicking Dolso's head. Though Dolso was in pain, Gangjun told him they should go one more round. He's thinking of going with rock this time. Of course he might change his mind. Dolso begged. Please, no more, Gangjun asked. Why not? It's fun. Dolso refused, saying he's the only one getting hit. He should kill him already then. Gangjun told him to come on, it might be different this time now. If he doesn't put one out, he loses. The waist rank guy was speechless as he watched them both. He said to himself that Gangjun has been rubbing him the wrong way for a while now. He's acting like he knows something. Could he be someone sent from the administration bureau? Gangjun asked also what he's going to put out next. Dolso pleaded, Please, my lord, let's do this honorably. Gangjun scolded. What, are you saying I'm being unfair? Whatever, I've decided, I'm going with rock. The guy changed his mind as he saw their behavior. He knew the administration bureau wouldn't send some lunatic like that. He turned, waiting to strike since they were almost at the location. The two finally defeated the last of the undead, but as they were about to head back, the waist rank guy noticed a castle ahead of them. Then suddenly, they all got a message about discovering a hidden dungeon, monastery of the demon worshippers. They were all surprised to see it's a hidden dungeon because hidden dungeons are places where you can strike it rich. High-value items or spell books, all kinds of rare treasures, or even an elixir, the otherworldly cure-all. Bongu thought, if things go well, he might get the item he wants the most, an elixir, the only medicine that can cure his brain-dead mother. He never considered using an elixir because elixirs at the auction house have astronomical prices. But if one actually appears in the hidden dungeon, then it's his chance. Though he wants to try, he don't know about the others. He told them all that it's a hidden dungeon, so what should they do? Byungchul was still looking at the message pop up. He told Bongu that it's his first time seeing one of them in person. If they report it to the management bureau by the book, They'll just get a small reward and lose their raid rights. Bonggu suggested they should clear the hidden dungeon while they're at it. Byung-chul was hesitant. He questioned if they can clear it with their available party since only the two of them have real combat power. Bonggu persuaded, saying they should be able to clear it since it's just a D-rank gate's hidden dungeon anyway. Byung-chul agreed, then told him they should give it a shot while they're at it. In his mind, he hoped they could score big from the opportunity so he can retire. He then asked Gangjun and Dalso if they'll participate. Gangjun realized they'll be working overtime, so he requested extra pay. Byung-chul promised to pay 5 times the promised amount. Gangjun immediately calculated. The original pay is 300,000 won, so 5 times would be 1,500,000 won, and for the two of them, it would be 3 million won. He then agreed to the deal. The other guy also agreed, and so they decided to start the raid right away. As they walked towards the castle, the waist-rank guy had an evil grin on his face, definitely up to something sketchy. They arrived at the gate. Though it has an eerie feeling about it, they decided to enter anyway. The door opened and they all walked in. The room was too dark, but they walked in anyway. Then suddenly the door behind them closed by itself. This really surprised them. They thought they're trapped in the castle. But then, the light in front of them lit up. Immediately, Byung-chul went to try the door first, but it won't open no matter how hard he tried, so he deduced that it looks like it won't open until they clear the dungeon. Bonggu told him they came to clear it anyway, so they should go deeper inside. Gangjun looked at the door, though he wasn't scared since it's probably just a barrier spell at most. If that doesn't work, he'll just tear through it by force. After walking for a while, they were surprised to see there not even a single ant on their way, let alone monsters. But then, they were shocked to see so many dead bodies on the ground. It was obvious there must have been a battle, but it looks like both sides were annihilated. The waist-rank guy with a surprised expression pointed at a statue. It was a demon. Gangjun was surprised. He wondered what the hell it is. He had definitely seen it somewhere before but couldn't remember where. Then they noticed something written on a stone. They couldn't translate it, since it looks like a language from another world. Gangjun told Dalso to decode it. Dalso did as instructed. He told them all that it's a language from the demon realm. He adjusted his glasses and started reading. First, pass the trial and prove your minimum qualification. He told them that the trial was probably to fight and survive against the monsters guarding the place, and since the monsters are all dead, they've already passed the trial. The second is to offer 10 living people as sacrifices on the altar to prove your loyalty and faith. Then the revered gatekeeper of hell shall descend. Kneel before him and bow your head to beg for forgiveness. Only those who receive permission may return alive. Dalso told them it seems interesting. It's an altar with demons summoning magic cast on it, and it summons a fairly high-ranking demon. Byung-chul scolded. You senile old fool, what nonsense are you spouting? Dalso told him to look at the candles. Those are hellfire, also known as tribulation flames, eternal flames that burn using dark magic derived from life force as a medium. They're commonly used as catalysts for summoning demons. Candles that size would require about one person's life force each, but 9 of the 10 candles are already burning, so 9 people have already been sacrificed. If they sacrifice one more, a demon will appear, and they have to summon the demon and beg it nicely so they can get out. According to the stone tablet, that's how it should be interpreted. Byung-chul looked back. You don't all actually believe this nonsense, do you? The waist-rank guy then stepped forward with a sinister smile. He told them they should decide. He asked Byung-chul if he's suggesting they all stay trapped in the room and die together. Either way, one of us has to die. The atmosphere immediately changed. The aura from the guy completely shifted. He laughed out loud continuously and frantically. You crazy bastard! Byung-chul scolded. Why are you laughing? The guy apologized. Everyone's frozen faces looked so pathetic and funny I couldn't help myself. Now we need to decide who becomes the sacrifice. Who among us is the most useless person? Bonggu told him no. If they look carefully, there must be a way for all of them to survive. Byung-chul couldn't refute it. He told them all that, although that bastard's words sound crazy, if someone really has to die, it should be someone who's lived long enough. Dalso looked back. He wondered why everyone was looking at him. He thought about it. Someone who's lived enough. Are they talking about him? He paused as he realized he's not even human in the first place. Oh, then, he wondered if they're talking about his lord, who's over 300 years old in Earth years. He then whispered to Gangjun, Those insolent fools seem to be targeting you as someone who's lived long enough, but Gangjun brutally told him they're talking about him. He also was surprised. Me? Are you sure? They clearly said someone who's lived long enough. Gangjun told him he is the one they're talking about, so he should just stay quiet. Bonggu told them not to jump to conclusions, they should find a way for all of them to survive. But Byung-chul scolded, "You bastard, you want to play saint even now. I am not saying anything wrong. At this rate, we'll all be trapped here and die." "Damn it!" He slammed the wall. "Hidden dungeon or whatever. If you hadn't tempted us in the first place, we wouldn't have come here." Bonggu told everyone to calm down, blaming each other now won't change anything. Byung-chul's attitude shifted. He told Bonggu that if he wants to play hypocrite until the end, then he should just die in their place. Surprised, Bonggu asked what he meant. Byung-chul grinned. "Don't you like the option either?" But then they heard laughter coming from the waist rank guy again. "What a delightful spectacle," he commented with a sinister grin. "When people are cornered, that's when they reveal their ugly nature. There's no need to bicker among yourselves, so you can stop now," he continued. "I was planning to kill all of you from the start anyway." He then activated his dark magic and chanted a spell. Suddenly, the aura he emitted began seeping into the bodies of the dead on the ground, and they all started standing up. Bonggu was shocked to see he was a necromancer. Byung-chul insulted, "Waist rank, you bastard. Don't tell me you've been pretending all this while." The guy grinned wildly, his voice echoing throughout the room. "You finally caught on." "Yes, I'm a hunter-killer affiliated with the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance, and I am not a waist rank, I'm a rank, meaning I am a great being fundamentally different from vermin like you." Hearing he's from the Anti-Management Bureau, Byung-chul immediately lost all hope of surviving. Because unlike the Hunter Management Bureau established for peace and public welfare, those bastards claim that people with special powers should monopolize wealth and power. If that's the case, Byung-chul realized that the bastard is a murderer who hunts hunters affiliated with the Bureau. He looked behind him. The undead were approaching. He counted, they were more than 30, and they had to face an A-rank murderer on top of that. Seeing this, he gave up. He told Bonggu there's no chance of winning. Bonggu tried telling him they should at least try fighting, but Byung-chul told him it's over. They're already dead. The guy grinned wildly. "A very commendable attitude. Just accept your fate and become sacrifices for the great cause." But then, Gangjun told him to wait. "Wait a minute, it'd be a bit problematic to kill those guys right now since they still owe me money." Gangjun threw the bag on the ground, saying, "And didn't I warn you earlier that it'd be best to just keep acting until the end? Just for today?" Pissed, the guy asked Gangjun if he's from the Management Bureau. Gangjun replied no. He asked, "Then where are you from?" Gangjun replied again, "My house is in Sinrim-dong." Seeing that Gangjun wasn't inclined to reveal his affiliation, he decided to ask Gangjun again, "How exactly did you get here?" Gangjun replied, "By public transportation, by a bus that goes straight from Sinrim Station." Angry, he told Gangjun it seems like they're not communicating at all. Gangjun commented, "You complain even when I answer. Anyway, what are you planning to do by summoning a demon?" The guy walked up to the statue and told Gangjun that the being he is summoning is one of the 72 demons ruling the demon realm, Lord Marbas, the great demon. Confident, he continued, "After pledging loyalty to Lord Marbas and forming a vassal contract, I'll borrow his immense power, and together with the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance members, we'll reconstruct the world order." Though Gangjun was no longer paying attention to what he was saying, he recalled the name Marbas. Now he realized why the statue looked familiar earlier. He was sure he killed most of the 72 demons from the demon realm dimension he invaded with his own hands. But it seems like Marbas was one of the ones who escaped and survived back then. Now, the guy told Gangjun that he'll have to die for the great cause. He then gathered all the undead. Byung-chul already accepted his fate. He's gonna die emptily in such a place. Bonggu apologized to everyone. His greed led them to their deaths. Gangjun stepped forward. He told him they'll all die someday, but not today. "If you're going to die, you should pay me my wages first." He then activated his energy. The swirling force engulfed the room. They all couldn't believe their eyes. The guy was shocked. He had no idea how Gangjun was able to use dark magic. Even if it's the same dark magic as his, the level is far different. Gangjun's energy penetrated his eyes. That's when he saw it. A death god. Fear soaked his body like sweat. He fell to the ground, knowing he had to run. Gangjun then told Dulso to command the undead to show respect. Immediately, Dulso stretched out his hand and said with vigor, "The catastrophe beyond measure, king of the dead who rules and governs the living, the great immortal. They should show respect to his majesty, the emperor." Immediately, all the undead went to their knees and bowed. The moment those death knights dropped to their knees, the atmosphere went from dark fantasy to divine comedy. A whole army of armored nightmares bowing to Gangjun. Yeah, the same Gangjun who just wanted to be an anonymous nobody. Looked like the universe's biggest inside joke. Even he blinked twice, wondering if he'd accidentally subscribed to godhood. Dulso stood off to the side, equal parts amazed and existentially tired. Bongu's brain was buffering, and he looked one bad heartbeat away from uninstalling reality. The villain, once loud and arrogant, was suddenly trembling before Gangjun, mumbling apologies that even he didn't believe. The so-called god of death just sighed, wearing that tired look of someone who's been accidentally overpowered by life itself. He said he was sick of the drama, of standing out, of being worshipped, of cosmic nonsense. All he wanted was peace and quiet, maybe a cup of tea without someone trying to sacrifice a continent. Then he placed his hand on the villain's shin. Because of course, nothing says terrifying deity like a casual kneecap grab, and stared straight into his eyes. In that instant, the temperature of the cave seemed to drop. Mystic eyes. Dulso recognized it immediately. The advanced illusion technique that shredded sanity like old receipts. The stronger the caster, the uglier the nightmare. And the poor fool who stood before Gangjun was now groaning, thrashing and rolling on the ground, like his soul was trapped in a blender. Bongu, who moments ago thought this villain was unbeatable, now stood frozen, watching the man's pride disintegrate. His thoughts were loud enough to echo, "Who in the world is Gangjun, and why does reality obey him like a nervous intern?" Gangjun's gaze flicked toward Bongu, the kind of look that rearranges your priorities. He noted how the kid was still standing, which by Gangjun's standards counted as progress. It almost sounded like praise, right up until Gangjun's expression said otherwise. He asked if Bongu wanted to be in the shoes of the bad guy on the floor. Bongu replied, "No, sir." Gangjun said, "All right, then he must never speak of what happened just now to anyone." Dulso, forever efficient, suggested finishing the job. Killing the witness and cleaning up would be logical. Bongu's spirit nearly left his body at the suggestion, but Gangjun waved it off. Death was boring. A gag spell would do, one that made anyone who dared speak the truth drop dead on the spot. The villain's screams faded into background ambience as the ritual began. The undead, obedient as ever, lifted his limp body to the altar. Blood spilled freely, candles trembled in excitement. The whole cave started shaking like the world was buffering an update it didn't ask for. From the stone statue, a voice began to echo, a heavy, ancient sound drenched in ego. The demon Marbas arrived, radiating theatrics like a one-man opera. His speech dragged on about vengeance, ancient betrayal, lost brothers, and the usual infernal trauma. Gangjun, somewhere between unimpressed and mildly nostalgic, realized he'd heard this voice before. And then it hit him. Oh, it was that demon. The one who used to rule Hell's schedule before Gangjun wrecked it. Marbas froze mid-sentence. Recognition dawned. That voice, the immortal himself, the same being who'd once dismantled his entire world like a bored editor cutting filler arcs. Gangjun smirked, the kind of calm that made thunder look insecure. He didn't even need to say much, his expression did the talking. The mighty gatekeeper of Hell, the demon among demons, was now a trembling mess begging for permission to exist. And Gangjun, in his infinite irony, actually allowed it. Told him to leave, to live quietly. The absurd mercy of a man who could end worlds but just wanted to clock out early. Marbas bowed, almost crying from relief, muttering gratitude as he prepared to escape. And that's when Gangjun's mind drifted, to something completely unrelated. He remembered reading once that pets improve children's emotional intelligence. Something about empathy, IQ, and furry companionship. A dangerous spark flickered in his eyes. Just as Marbas turned toward his freedom, Gangjun stopped him with two words that shattered the room. "Bark for me." The demon froze, his infernal brain struggling to process whether this was a command or cosmic trolling. Gangjun's expression remained calm, the way only someone truly chaotic could manage. And so began the most humiliating moment in demonic history. Marbas barked. Loudly, hesitantly, then with effort, each sound echoing like a funeral for dignity. Dulso observed quietly, clearly taking mental notes on divine cruelty. Gangjun nodded, evaluating him like a disappointed dog trainer. He even praised the effort, Said the demon looked like a dog now. Dulso agreed, deadpan as ever, because apparently reality had no standards anymore. Inside, Marbas was screaming, the once feared demon lord of 72 realms, now reduced to a panting embarrassment. His pride burned hotter than hellfire, but his body obeyed. Sweat dripped from his horns as Gangjun smiled, genuinely pleased. He told the demon he'd passed the first test, then asked if he could shapeshift. Marbas hesitated. Inside, he cursed every law of creation that led him here. He was once called by the terrifying Monica, Gatekeeper of Hell, a name that made angels request early retirement. Marbas, one of the 72 apex demons, a being who once reduced kingdoms to smoke, now stood trembling before a man who didn't even button his shirt properly. But right now, the mighty demon lord was being asked to audition as a pet dog. Life was cruel. He shapeshifted instantly, fur rippling into place as he landed as a small brown puppy. "How about this?" he asked. Gangjun tilted his head like a fashion critic judging a disaster on the runway. Definitely cute, but something was off. No, he decided with the kind of authority that could ruin careers. Dulso, trying to be diplomatic, muttered something about proportions and princess preferences, as if the princess's taste mattered more than Marbas's dignity. Marbas, meanwhile, was screaming internally, "You filthy mortals! How dare you judge a creature who once commanded hellfire?" Still, Gangjun wasn't satisfied. He clapped once, radiating the kind of energy teachers have before giving surprise tests. "Change again." In an instant, Marbas turned into a fluffy white dog. Gangjun's eyes squinted. Next, now a shaggy one. Next, now a teddy bear-looking thing. Next, now a short-tailed mutt that looked like it regretted its bloodline. Next, by the 7th transformation, Marbas's patience had gone on strike. He reverted to the very first puppy, glaring so hard that even gods would file complaints. His eyes screamed it louder than words ever could. What the actual hell is wrong with this human? Gangjun cocked his head, unimpressed, and asked what exactly Marbas thought he was doing, because someone had to say it out loud. Was this a tantrum, a protest, or a very dramatic audition for canine misery? Marbas replied no, he wouldn't dare to do so. Then he continued the audition. After few changes, he turned to a particular dog. Upon seeing this, Gangjun blinked, then gasped in enlightenment. "Oh, this one! Perfect!" He started patting Mabat's head, rubbing behind the ears like he just discovered heaven's softest pillow. Inside, Marbas was vibrating between wrath and bliss. "How dare you treat one of the 72 demon pillars like a lapdog? Wait, what's this? Why does this feel nice?" His tail betrayed him, twitching once. A small wag of sin. He froze, ashamed, but that single movement sold his soul to the pet life. Gangjun, oblivious, turned to Dulso and Bangu. "So, what do you think?" Dulso nodded as he said it was a perfect compromise. Bangu, who clearly wanted no part in this madness, muttered that it looked wonderful. And that was that. Gangjun carried Marbas in his arms like a spoiled child's toy, stroking his fur while walking. The once feared demon felt humiliated, and yet, why does this warmth feel so damn good? But before they could leave, Bangu spoke up with that annoying voice of reason everyone hates in a drama. He reminded them that the corpse from earlier was kind of important, and shouldn't just be left there like discarded pizza. Gangjun sighed. Trouble, paperwork, public attention. Ew. He hated all of it. He wasn't even technically a hunter anymore, just a man allergic to attention. And so, like the manipulative genius he was, he turned the spotlight onto Bangu. "Hey, you were amazing earlier. Thanks for saving my life." Bangu blinked. "What? Saving whose life? Is this man okay? Is there a hidden camera?" But Gangjun went on, spinning pure PR magic. To subdue such a vicious criminal in one blow, impressive work. Bangu froze. Inside his brain, 12 processors spun simultaneously trying to figure out Gangjun's 12D chess move. "He's pushing the credit onto me, so he can vanish unnoticed. Damn it, he's good." He stammered out a humble acceptance, but Gangjun smiled. "Sharp kid, he'll go far." Soon after, they handled the body and went back to Earth through the portal. The aftermath was a chaotic mix of reality and farce, with barricades and soldiers marking the street like a crime scene set by an overzealous director. Hunters' bodies were rushed in ambulances, their faces pale, eyes shut, their life and death struggle reduced to motionless forms on stretchers. Bangu, the one who had taken down the villain, sat at a nearby table, pen hovering nervously, scribbling his statement. The officer leaned close, relief dripping from every pore, telling him how glad he was that everyone survived, that no major injuries had occurred. The corpse had been identified, a wanted murderer tied to the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance, and now a special unit would investigate. They would need Bongu for additional input. He agreed, though inside his mind a storm of disbelief brewed. Then came the real punch. Once the investigation was complete, the case would go public. Bongu's mind stalled. Reported? Publicly? His chest tightened, disbelief hammering through him. If it weren't for Gangjun, they'd all be cold corpses, nothing but corpses sprawled in the street, and he felt it in his bones. The officer leaned closer, voice dropping like a blade in a dark alley. Had Bongu undergone a second awakening recently? The report claimed he had subdued the Anti-Management Bureau hunter single-handedly. Bongu stammered, trying to downplay it, muttering about luck. The officer, who clearly had a flair for understatement, warned him humility could be poison, that at some point he should accept his praise. And then, almost conspiratorially, whispered about the bounty on the villain's head. Hundreds of millions, with the promise of guild contacts once the news hit. Star material, headline screaming, C-rank rookie, subdues a rank murderer. National hero, Kim Bongu. Bongu blinked at the absurdity, his thoughts tangled between awe and panic, grateful yet utterly bewildered. And all the while his mental nod went to Gangjun, the shadow behind the miracle. Meanwhile Gangjun was across the street, living his best broke man life, chewing spicy tteokbokki from a street stall. He bit into it, flinched, and said it wasn't that spicy. His lips, however, were conducting a ritual of fire. Dolso, half crying from the heat, refused to stop eating. "My tongue feels nothing," he muttered, "but my soul is burning beautifully." Gangjun asked Marbus, now sitting like a depressed furball on the ground, if demons made this kind of torture food. Marbus, terrified, shook his head so fast he nearly unsummoned himself. Gangjun grinned. "Good, next time we'll try fire chicken stir-fried noodles." Dolso looked at him like a man hearing his death sentence read in high definition. Bongu stared at them from across the street. He stood where he was, still processing the universe. Who was this Gangjun? A man who made demons beg and a rank hunters evaporate. A man disguised as a nobody. Maybe a fugitive, maybe a god, maybe an idiot. Hard to tell. But one thing was clear. Bongu had to get close to him, become his disciple, learn his secret. Because if life ever gave him another chance, he'd rather wag his tail in strength than bow his head in fear. The bureaucratic mess settled, and it was time for payment. Bongu handed Gangjun the agreed sum, careful, respectful. Gangjun counted, eyebrows raising ever so slightly. Too much. Bongu shrugged, logical and simple. He saved their lives. This was the least they could do. Gangjun pocketed the money with an almost imperceptible nod. Instructions clear, use it well, meet again if fate allowed. Doso, ever patient, agreed, time to move on. But Bongu, heart-thumping, asked for just a moment more, a meal at least. Gangjun waved it off, family waiting, duty calling, the world turning without pause. Bongu's internal plea was desperate, catch him just a moment, a drink, 30 minutes, an hour at most, soju. The word froze Gangjun in place. Gangjun asked if it was really the soju he was thinking of, and Bongu, ever the optimist, replied that it probably was. Gangjun looked up, as if the ceiling itself had just confirmed a divine revelation. Earth had soju. Humanity, at least, had done one thing right. He said that back in his last days as the emperor of the Onyx continent, he had tried every liquor under the sun, the richest, rarest, and most pompous ones served in cups made of ego and gold. Yet none came close to the taste of soju. He'd tried to recreate it with royal breweries, divine brewers, even some illegal alchemists, but the flavor refused to be reborn. And now, sitting here on Earth, he decided fate owed him a drink. The trio found a nearby restaurant, took their seats, and before anyone could count to 3, glasses of soju were already half gone. Gangjun took a sip, and his face went through the 5 stages of enlightenment. The heat, the spice, the nostalgia, everything collided in his mouth like a reunion of bad decisions. He declared inwardly that this was it. Earth had redeemed itself. Dolso, meanwhile, was experiencing something else entirely. As the vampire lord chewed into a spicy dish, his eyes watered like a sinner's baptism. He declared that the food was hot, delicious, and painful, a lava bath for mortals. Yet for him, the flavor was a forgotten memory. How long had it been since he last tasted blood? This food, This devilish dish burned like sin and tasted like forgiveness. Watching the two of them perform culinary sermons, Bongu wondered what he'd gotten himself into. They looked like men who just discovered food after 10 years in exile. He muttered that maybe he should order more, because clearly starvation wasn't the issue, but obsession was. The moment he asked, both of them lit up with joy. He turned to the old lady running the restaurant, the Ajuma, and asked for another bottle of soju and one more bowl of rice soup. The woman, half done with her patience, shouted a confirmation and turned to leave. But before she could take 2 steps, also called out to her. His tone had the kind of seriousness reserved for royal decrees and misplaced romantic confidence. He thanked her for her hard work and urged her to take care of herself, saying health was more important than anything. The woman blinked, frowned, and decided she was witnessing a lunatic's performance. She asked if this old man was hitting on her. If he was trying to sweet-talk her, she said he should just eat quietly. Dalso, undeterred, solemnly promised that he would never take such a valuable blood-sacrificed meal lightly. He would eat it all with reverence. The woman froze. Blood? She frowned deeper and walked off, muttering about strange old men. Dalso, on the other hand, was moved to tears. He truly believed the old lady had poured her life essence into the meal. He whispered inwardly that she was a saint in disguise. Bongu glanced at him and sighed. "Sir, are you crying right now?" He didn't say it aloud, but his face said everything. This man had clearly lived a very dramatic life. Then Gangjun looked over and asked why Bongu wasn't eating. Bongu replied that he was, slowly, only to be interrupted when Gangjun, with his usual lack of attention to mortal details, called him Bongsik. Bongu corrected him, saying it was Bongu, not Bongsik. Gangjun waved a hand like he was clearing bugs from his memory and said fine. He told him to stop calling him sir and just call him Hyung. Bongu nodded, glad to finally earn casual treatment from a man who might as well be a divine landlord. Then Bongu hesitated and asked if Gangjun would accept him as his disciple. Gangjun didn't even blink before replying no. Bongu sighed. Of course, classic rejection speed, faster than light, colder than logic. But he didn't stop there. He poured a cup of soju onto the floor, like an offering to fate, and began his tragic backstory. He said he used to be an F-rank hunter. Gangjun sighed internally. He could already smell the sob story coming. He hated them, but since Bongu had paid for the food, he decided to listen out of basic meal etiquette. Bongu explained how he stayed a hunter to support his little sister's tuition and his mother's hospital bills. His mother was sick, and the only cure was an elixir, the legendary cure-all. But it was priceless, rare, and guarded by reality itself. Gangjun froze mid-sip. Elixir? He had dozens of those back in the Anuk's imperial treasury, stashed like casual party favors. Too bad he hadn't brought any to Earth. He cursed his own lack of foresight, the one time he could have flexed usefully. Bongu continued, saying elixirs sold for hundreds of billions, maybe trillions. Gangjun muttered that he really should have packed 1 or 2 next to his socks. Bongu blinked, confused by the comment, but Gangjun waved him off, telling him to continue. Bongu said he kept raiding gates with his weak body because it was the only way to find one. Gangjun looked him up and down like a disappointed coach and asked inwardly how that noodle physique had survived anything. Bongu admitted he'd nearly died many times but somehow made it to C rank. Gangjun nodded. Sounded exactly like the opening chapters of every tragic protagonist novel ever. By the time Bongu started crying about needing strength to save his mother, Gangjun had emotionally clocked out. But Bongu bowed down, begging him to take him as a disciple. Gangjun stared at him like a teacher whose student just confessed to eating the homework. He called him Bongwan this time, asking why a grown man was crying in public. Bongu corrected him again, saying it was Bongu, not Bongwan. Gangjun just sighed and told him to stand straight like a man. Then he asked if Bongu could really do anything he said. Bongu, sniffling but determined, said yes, absolutely. Gangjun nodded thoughtfully, then listed the great trials of becoming his disciple. Cleaning, laundry, cooking, shower care, and dog walking. Bongu hesitated, wondering how that list was supposed to make him stronger, but he agreed anyway. Gangjun poured him more soju and declared that the deal was sealed. Then, as if the chaos wasn't enough, Gangjun asked if he could borrow Bongu's name and his hunter license. Bongu blinked in confusion, asking why he needed his name. Gangjun explained it would save money on license fees, and he could raid gates under Bongu's name while taking care of the monsters himself. A win-win, he said. Fame for Bonggu, peace for him. Sometime later, outside the restaurant, Marbus sat like a sulking celebrity in the body of a puppy. Two ladies spotted him and squealed at how cute he looked. They bent down, petting him like he was a living stress ball. Inside his head, Marbus fumed. Insolent fools, how dare they touch him like some common pet. But when one of them said how soft his fur was, his brain short-circuited between fury and guilty pleasure. Then one lady dropped a dog treat, saying she'd share one from her baby's stash. Marbus turned his face away like he didn't care, projecting pure royal disdain. But as soon as they left, he sniffed it, took a bite, and instantly regretted how good it tasted. Such trashy snacks, he thought, yet somehow divine. Marbus was demolishing the snack like it had personally insulted his ancestors. And every bite released a flavor explosion so intense it felt like he was eating a full-course meal condensed into a single overachieving snack. It wasn't just food anymore, it was philosophy, sin, and pleasure packaged in fried glory. He thought, so this is what bliss tastes like. Destruction seasoned with depravity. Gangjun showed up right in time to ruin the moment, asking what exactly Marbus thought he was doing. The demon lord, caught like a kid with crumbs on his soul, dropped the bone and muttered that he was just checking something. Gangjun didn't bother prying. He simply told him to keep doing whatever unholy ritual he was performing. Then, out of nowhere, Gangjun sighed and looked toward Bonggu, the man who was currently proving that alcohol and dignity are mortal enemies. Bonggu had passed out cold after a few bottles of soju, lying there like a deflated ego. Dulso, ever the responsible psychopath, was carrying him like a corpse and asked if he should just kill the guy for discipline's sake. Gangjun, ever the saint of sarcasm, told him no. Let's not add murder to the dinner menu. Dulso grumbled that Lady Subin wouldn't approve, but Gangjun shrugged. Leaving a drunk man on the street would be worse PR than a public execution. Dulso glared at the sleeping Bonggu and muttered that the guy was clearly having a nightmare. Eternal rest, he said, would clean him up nicely. Gangjun just sighed. There it was again, Dulso's love language, homicide. He told him to chill. So Gangjun, being Gangjun, placed a hand on Bonggu's head and decided to do the opposite of killing him. He was going to use dream manipulation, an ancient dark magic from the dream demons. Dulso had learned the basics once, barely enough to invade a toddler's nap, and yet his lord was already using it like a bedtime god. He thought, as expected of my lord, too powerful, too casual, too much. Gangjun just brushed it off, saying he merely nudged the guy's dream a bit. If reality is trash, at least let the man have a good dream while he's alive. Inside Bonggu's dream, things took a sentimental detour. He found himself by a river, throwing stones like a kid. Then came his father's voice, gentle and warm, too warm for a guy whose entire existence had been chaos. His father told him he was proud. Bonggu froze, realizing his dad was long dead. Yet here he was, alive, smiling, patting his head, telling him to be strong, to protect his mother and siblings. The scene unfolded like a miracle stitched from memories. His younger self begged his dad not to leave again. He promised he'd never complain about fishing trips, never whine about mountain climbs, never say he was bored. He just wanted more time. Then his mom's voice called them for dinner, and there she was, healthy, radiant, serving food like heaven took cooking classes. His father laughed, saying they should go out more often. His mom smiled, saying the kids loved it. Bonggu cried through the entire dream, calling out to them, saying the food was delicious and that he could finally protect them now. But dreams are cruel things. The illusion dissolved, fading like ash in wind. Bonggu found himself by a fireplace, hearing a voice call him, someone telling him to wake up because dried pollock soup was ready. He blinked, disoriented, as reality clawed its way back. Outside, Dulso's voice cut through. Should we just kill him so he can sleep forever? Gangjun sighed like a tired babysitter. Why was this man so addicted to murder? He told Dulso to wait, let the guy wake up and eat with them. Inside the dream, Bonggu smiled faintly, whispering that his name wasn't Bongchan. Then his consciousness broke free. He jolted awake. The first thing he saw was Gangjun sitting calmly, holding his daughter, Seol, in his arms. Gangjun's tone was soft, teasing, asking if his princess had eaten. Seol nodded and said it was yummy. The man who once bullied monsters into submission was now losing to a toddler in a staring contest. Bonggu stared in disbelief. Was this Gangjun's house? And that child? His daughter? Gangjun kept playing with Seol, doing peekaboo and asking who she resembled to be that cute. Seol proudly said Baba, and Gangjun nodded with that smug of course face that fathers get when they realize they've won genetics. Then, noticing Bongu's horrified stare, Gangjun froze, his eyes narrowed. Bongu froze harder, mutual embarrassment flooded the room. Gangjun asked how long he'd been watching. Bongu trembled and mentally replayed the entire peekaboo sequence. From our princess to you looking like Baba, that's how far, he thought miserably. Before the shame could kill him, Subin walked in, saving Bongu from social death. She noted the smell of alcohol and pointed out that the sun was already high. She'd made dried pollock soup, so he should come eat. Bongu almost cried from gratitude. She was an angel, the goddess of merciful timing. Later they all sat around the table, dishes laid out like a Korean banquet of edible luxury. Bongu realized these people didn't eat meals, they hosted diplomatic feasts with every bite. Trying to redeem himself from his drunken first impression, he praised Subin's cooking like his life depended on it. Surely Gangjun would back him up, right? Wrong. Gangjun frowned and reminded him that Subin wasn't his wife, she was his sister. Bongu's brain blue-screened. He froze, every cell screaming in embarrassment. Perfect. He just flirted with his friend's sister in front of the entire table. Genius. Trying to fix the awkwardness, he simply nodded and kept eating quietly. Subin, ever composed, asked if it was true that he and Gangjun had been close since childhood. Bongu quickly realized this was the story Gangjun must have told her. So he played along, saying yes, they were like brothers. Then Subin, with quiet worry, asked a favor. Could Bongu look after Gangjun for a while? The man almost choked on his soup. Look after him? The same Gangjun who flicked boss monsters like mosquitoes and casually mastered demonic dream magic? How does one look after a demigod? Subin continued gently, explaining that Gangjun had only recently returned home after being trapped in a gate for nearly a month. Bongu's mind clicked. Wait, a gate survivor? One of those hunters from the news who came back changed, stronger, different? Before he could process the absurdity, Gangjun casually corrected her, saying they weren't trapped in a gate. Subin tilted her head. Pretending to remember, she said, "That's right, he wasn't stuck in a gate, but was some king of a continent or whatever." The moment she said that, Bongu nearly short-circuited. Wait, Gangjun was a king? A whole king? That's insane! But Gangjun, never one to settle for mediocrity, corrected them both. Not a king, an emperor, because apparently regular royalty wasn't dramatic enough. Subin rolled her eyes, saying that it's the same thing anyway. Gangjun disagreed immediately. It was not the same thing. Kings couldn't even look him in the eye, he said. He was an emperor, a higher species of headache, above 100 kings combined. Dalso, ever the loyal hype man, joined in from the corner. My lord, do you remember the former king of Baratheon? Gangjun looked unimpressed and asked who that even was. Dalso reminded him. The one who dared to make eye contact with his imperial majesty and got beheaded for it. Gangjun snapped his fingers, as if recalling a mildly amusing memory. Oh, that guy. Yeah, he died embarrassingly fast. Bongu sat there, stunned. His mind was struggling to keep up. Gangjun wasn't just a king. He was an emperor. And Dalso? If that was true, then Dalso couldn't be just some average bodyguard either. Maybe he was some high-ranking general disguised as a loyal maniac. Subin interrupted his mental chaos, explaining softly that this was exactly what she meant. She asked if Bongu could see it now. This was what she wanted to tell him. Gangjun was struggling with post-gate effects, adjusting back to normal society. Bongu nodded quickly. Ah, so that's why he walks like gravity owes him rent. It made sense now. He asked cautiously if Dalso had also been some sort of emperor back then. Gangjun replied no. Just a prime minister. Dalso immediately corrected him, an advisor technically. Subin sighed so hard it could have powered a windmill. Everything was going sideways again. She turned to Bongu, clearly desperate, and asked if he was just playing along with the mood. But still, she asked him sincerely to please help Gangjun readjust. Bongu nodded, saying he would do his best, because what else could he possibly say to this royal circus? Subin thanked him, relieved. Then she turned to Dalso and asked if he'd like to try a part-time job. Dalso smiled like he'd just been invited to slay a dragon. Lady Subin, he said, what kind of job is this? Gangjun casually mentioned that the convenience store across the street was hiring. Subin had brought it up earlier. They said Dalso could at least come for an interview. Dalso, predictably, refused immediately. He had a duty to serve his lord and could not leave his side, not even for a moment. But Gangjun, tired of being worshipped like a deity, told him to go anyway. He thought to himself that it was exhausting having Dalso glued to him all day. Every hour it was the same. My lord this, my lord that, my lord should I kill him? Enough. Let the man learn about capitalism and customer service for once. Plus, Gangjun reasoned, it would help the household finances a little. He told Dulso directly to go for the job. Dulso froze, scandalized. My lord, I cannot abandon you. But Gangjun smirked and reminded him of his grand promise, to build an empire here on Earth. Dulso's eyes widened. His lord was testing him. Of course! Understanding mortal society would be crucial to ruling it. Dulso's face lit up with terrified inspiration. He fell to his knees and began slamming his forehead on the floor. His lord was testing his loyalty. He begged forgiveness for failing to see His Majesty's vision sooner. Gangjun groaned internally. Here we go again. Dulso continued banging his head, declaring he had no face to gaze upon his emperor's glorious countenance. He swore to crush his unworthy body into dust if that's what it took to fulfill this mission. Gangjun told him to calm down. Dulso did not calm down. He just made it worse, shouting that he would devote every breath to this divine investigation. Gangjun sighed, rubbing his temple, and said fine. He'd take that as a yes. He turned to Subin, asking if she heard. It was decided. Dulso would take the interview. Thus, the legend of Sir Dulso von de Crapsley began, an ancient warrior stepping into the terrifying battlefield of part-time employment. Later, Bongu was in the kitchen, washing dishes with the focus of a monk. Subin frowned, saying, wasn't he a guest? Why was he doing chores? Gangjun told her it was fine, Bongu volunteered. Subin wasn't sure if she believed that, but she admitted he was surprisingly good at it. Gangjun leaned back, flicked the remote, and turned on the TV. The news came on. Anchors discussing gate occurrences in Seoul and Gyeonggi. Apparently, new gates could absorb all living beings within a 2-kilometer radius. Everyone needed to stay alert. Subin tensed immediately. Their house was on the Gangnam side. What if a gate appeared there? Gangjun waved it off. Nothing would happen. Simple as that. Then Seol called from the floor, happily tapping her favorite doggy, who happened to be Marbas, still stuck in his fluffy punishment form. She told him they should kiss. Gangjun's expression snapped into full dad mode. Absolutely not. Kissing? With that creature? His internal monologue instantly turned into a list of creative ways to exterminate Marbas. Seol blinked, confused. Get hurt? She didn't understand. Meanwhile, Marbas was trembling like a leaf, mentally screaming that he didn't even do anything. He didn't kiss anyone. Gangjun's glare was enough to melt a continent. No kissing, no touching, no proximity. Even petting was suspicious behavior at this point. Subin smacked Gangjun on the head and told him to stop bullying animals in front of his daughter. Gangjun paused, wondering whether he should really consider Marbas an animal. Technically, yes, for Seol's sake. So he let it go. Seol giggled and said she'd just pet the doggy instead. She stroked Marbas's fur gently while he silently prayed for survival. Gangjun watched her, feeling something tighten in his chest. She was adorable, too pure for the world he knew. And he decided right there, he wasn't going to let this world's filth reach her. By the next morning, Gangjun handed Subin an envelope filled with cash. She opened it and froze. 5 million won. She asked where he even got that kind of money. Gangjun said he'd checked his old bank account and, surprisingly, the savings he'd made before disappearing 3 years ago were still there. Tears welled in Subin's eyes. She confessed she hadn't told him how bad things had gotten. Utilities, rent, food, everything was crushing her. She thanked him, saying she could finally breathe again. Gangjun smiled faintly. He didn't really know what to say, so he just muttered that it was a good thing. Subin promised to cook something special for dinner to celebrate. She asked if he wanted anything in particular. Gangjun said anything was fine. Subin sighed, so blunt as always. She suggested they go grocery shopping together, maybe stop by a kids' cafe or playground with Seol. Gangjun shook his head. He needed to rest, but he suggested that Dulso accompany her instead. It'd be good protection if anything happened. Subin agreed cheerfully, and soon after, she and Dulso left with Seol. Gangjun waved them off with a smile. The moment the door closed, his expression shifted. Rest? Not a chance. He had zero intention of sleeping. In the next scene, the taxi dropped him off in front of a humble comics cafe, and he stood there nodding to himself like a hero returning to a battlefield made of dust and nostalgia. This is it, he thought. The place he'd always wanted to visit back then, when he still had the excuse of being busy ruling an empire. Now he could walk in like a free man. He muttered something about Hunter x Hunter finally releasing a new volume during his long absence. Meanwhile, over at the mart, Dulso was conducting a holy investigation on behalf of the Empire's stomach. He pointed dramatically at a sign that said Sample Corner and whispered, Lady Subin, behold, Gourmet food. He picked up a toothpick, stabbed a dumpling, and took a bite like he just won a national lottery. Heaven, he declared. Infinite rations with no tax. The poor staff lady froze, torn between murder and customer service. Subin, who had evolved past human embarrassment at this point, just sighed. Seol giggled beside them, opening her tiny mouth when Dalso offered her a spoonful. Uh-huh. Princess approves, Dalso said proudly, as if feeding royalty instead of a toddler. The employee's smile was the kind you give when HR tells you to stay calm or lose your job. Subin, still innocent, decided to fix the situation in the best way a child could, by buying something. She asked for a bag of dumplings, and the lady almost cried in relief. But before the transaction could save the peace, the mart radio exploded with panic. Attention all customers! A large gate has occurred near Seolim intersection station. Cut to the comics cafe. Gangjun was inside asking the cashier for the latest volume of Hunter x Hunter, only to be told, politely but fatally, that it still hasn't come out. Gangjun blinked. What? His entire divine aura faltered. The cashier, who had no idea he was standing before a centuries-old emperor, shrugged. Yeah, I thought it'd be out when I got discharged from the army, but nope. 3 years later, still nothing. Gangjun's eyebrow twitched. 3 years, huh? Try 300. This fool hasn't tasted despair. The guy tried to help by handing him a trending new title. I, the world's weakest, became an SS rank hunter. Gangjun looked at it like it personally offended him, then sighed and went to the reading booth anyway. As he flipped through the story, he frowned. The main character was weak, poor, and hopelessly similar to Bongu. Except this Bongu wannabe eventually got strong enough to kill a 9-teeth cycle necromancer. Gangjun stopped reading. Excuse me, his brain said to the universe. Since when can a brat like that beat a 9th cycle necromancer? He closed the comic with the sigh of a god who regretted wasting oxygen. Should have gone to the mart, he thought. At least there, the embarrassment was free. As his eyes drooped, exhaustion hit him. Sleep had been his enemy for weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, the nightmares came crawling from the ruins of his old world. If only Iriel, that succubus queen, were still around to ease the torment. He wondered briefly how his vassals were doing before everything faded to white. When he opened his eyes again, snow was falling. Mountains stretched endlessly in silence. What the hell? He muttered. System message, you have entered the dimensional gate. Jotun Sanctuary. Gangjun stared at the air like someone who'd just realized he was the plot twist. Ah, so it wasn't a dream. Somehow, even his naps came with boss fights. He rubbed his temple and grumbled that the gate must have opened near the Manga Cafe. Well, this worked out fine. At least he didn't have to pay for gate access. Fate, apparently, had a sense of humor. Meanwhile, back at the mart, chaos rippled through the aisles. The announcement repeated, warning everyone to evacuate to the underground shelter. Subin's hands trembled as she glanced toward Seol. What about Gangjun? He's home alone. Also, ever the loyal servant replied with his usual calm tone. My lady, I humbly report that his lord is indestructible. What? Subin blinked. Yes, Dalso said proudly. Imperial scholars once spent a century trying to find a way for him to die. He even decreed, research, my death. They threw him off the world tree, set him on fire, fed him poison that could kill giants. And he just complained of boredom. Subin just stared, lost between disbelief and terror. So, he can't die? Dalso chuckled softly. Indeed. He left out the small detail that Gangjun had actually snuck out that morning, and threatened to kill him if Subin found out. The next announcement silenced the crowd. Catastrophe level gate confirmed near Seolim intersection station. That was the highest classification. A gate capable of wiping out an entire nation. Subin's heart dropped, clutching Seol closer. Sometime later, Bongu, alongside many other hunters who volunteered, entered the gate to subdue the monsters and prevent dungeon break. The dungeon floor was a white hell of ice and arrogance. Hunters scattered like confetti while one man, Shuji Hun, an S-rank hunter, and the so-called Swiftblade, danced through a storm of frost and death. His sword cut through the air so cleanly, it probably shaved atoms for fun. Every low-rank hunter around him suddenly remembered they were side characters in someone else's highlight reel. Bongu stood there gaping. Watching Ji-hun fight was like watching the tutorial boss play itself. The man moved faster than Bongu's paycheck and killed cleaner than hospital bleach. Yet even with that monstrous skill, the creatures here, towering snow beasts with ice thicker than human pride, fought him blow for blow. Each one of those things could go toe-to-toe with an S rank. The math didn't math anymore. Ji-hun barely managed to parry a hit that would have erased a small village, leapt back, and in a single flash, cut the monster down. The weaker hunters cheered like drunk fans watching a match they paid too little to understand. Bonggu clapped too, mostly out of fear and confusion, but Ji-hun wasn't untouched. His breathing turned ragged, his blade trembled. The monsters weren't dying fast enough, and there were too many left. Bonggu knew this rhythm. It was the same kind of hopeless rhythm that ended with, "We regret to inform you." He thought about what would happen if this gate broke. 3 years ago, they lost an entire city to something like this. If it happened again, there wouldn't be a country left to bury the bodies. And then the world changed its background music. From afar, birds shot into the sky as the system's announcement pierced everyone's mind. The giants of the snowfield have all fallen. Everyone froze. Ji-hun, barely standing, stared in disbelief. The giants, all of them downed at once. No one killed that many in an instant, no one human. The ground split. A shadow swallowed their courage. Out of that rift stepped something so tall the clouds had to make space for its ego. Hrimthurs, the frost giant of Niflheim, guardian of the Jotun sanctuary. His presence alone cracked the frost beneath every hunter's boots. When he spoke, his voice wasn't sound. It was gravity. He declared himself the apostle of the gods served by all Jotun, and demanded one thing, Irad. The name shook the cavern, echoing like a curse none of them understood. Hunters screamed, vomited, or just collapsed. Fear wasn't an emotion anymore, it was a landscape. Hrimthurs asked again where he was, the one who dared step foot in his sanctuary. Silence answered him, so he grabbed a hunter and turned him into snowflakes. Even Ji-hun tried to counterattack, but the giant swatted him aside like bad weather. One flick, and the 10th-ranked S-rank hunter became history. Bonggu's mind broke into comedic despair. He killed Ji-hun with a finger. That's not a monster, that's an HR notice from hell. All hope evaporated. Some hunters muttered prayers, others just whispered goodbyes. Bonggu, clutching his chest, whispered that he couldn't die yet. Not after finding a reason to live again, not after following him. He turned to run. The wind didn't agree. One lazy gesture from the frost giant sent him tumbling like litter in a storm. Bonggu hit the ground hard, tears freezing mid-fall, muttering pleas even he didn't believe in. But then, Hrimthurs stopped. His gaze turned. Something had entered his awareness. From the far side of the snowfield, the ground began to quake again. Bonggu looked up and saw a sight that fried his logic. Hundreds, no, thousands of giants. Undead, pale, and marching, all in perfect unison. And on the head of one of those monsters sat him. Gangjin, calm, unbothered, probably wondering if this counted as cardio. Bonggu's relief cracked into disbelief. The undead didn't attack him, they bowed. Every single one of them. Hrimthurs' deep voice shook the field. He recognized Gangjin instantly. The one whose hands had meddled with the dead, the one who had stolen the rest of his brothers. The frost giant's fury became a storm. He roared that Gangjin had turned the Jotun into restless corpses, denying them their eternal sleep. Gangjin just sighed. That same bored, world-tired sound that implied this wasn't even the first time a god's apostle yelled at him before dying. He asked, almost lazily, if the lord the Jotun worshipped was stronger than him. That made Hrimthurs tremble, not out of fear, but offense. To him, this was blasphemy. To Gangjin, it was Tuesday. The giant bellowed that even the gods were watching. Gangjin smiled. Good, let them. He'd been killing gods longer than anyone here had been breathing. Once upon a time, he'd prayed for equals. Now he just buried them. And as the frost giant prepared to strike, Gangjin raised his hand. The corpses of the fallen stirred. Ice cracked. Flesh reformed. All the monsters Hrimthurs had slain began to rise. The air thickened like a storm holding its breath. Every fallen monster, frostbitten, shattered, half-melted, began to twist and crawl back together. Bones bent like metal under divine command, fusing, folding, devouring one another in a ritual that spat on biology and art at the same time. Bonggu's jaw dropped somewhere around the 5th monster merge. By the time the mass had reached the size of a cathedral, he'd already stopped trying to understand and started praying to anything that still picked up calls. And then the grotesque thing finished forming. A living mountain stitched from nightmare, frost, and unholy craftsmanship. It was 5 times taller than Hrimthurs, who himself could have used Mount Everest as a walking stick. Even the frost giant froze mid-breath. For the first time in eons, something bigger looked down on him. The new creation moved. A single step that cracked the earth like it owed him money. The giant tried to defend, bracing against its assault, but the abomination's hand came down like divine sarcasm, heavy, uncaring, absolute. The frost giant strained against it, roaring, his legs sinking into the ground as if the world itself didn't want to bear witness. Gangjun tilted his head. Do you think the god you serve is stronger than me? Hrimthurst didn't answer. He couldn't. He was too busy getting crushed by the very corpses of his brothers. Then the abomination struck. A punch so brutal it looked like the universe buffering. The frost giant flew back, crashing through layers of frozen terrain, each impact rewriting geography. When the dust settled, even Bongu's fear needed a moment to process what it was looking at. He stammered, Is he dead? Gangjun sighed like a man tired of explaining basic physics. Bongu, why would you say that? That's ominous. You say things like that and corpses start taking it personally. Meanwhile, the abomination kept pounding Hrimthurst, smashing him into the ice over and over like Gangjun had ordered it to teach physics through blunt trauma. After a few dozen hits, even Bongu's moral compass begged for mercy. Hyung, he managed. Shouldn't he be, pulverized by now? Gangjun looked at him, as if he'd just asked why water was wet. Bongu, trying to distract himself from dying of secondhand terror, asked how he'd even made that thing. Gangjun's eyes lit up with the kind of joy reserved for parents explaining kindergarten crafts. Simple. Think of it as slime play, good for tactile and creative development. I used a similar principle. Mix your ingredients, Jotun material, frost essence, stir briskly with magic, let it harden slightly, then mold into the desired shape. Bongu blinked. Gangjun smiled. Basically, it's an arts and crafts golem. I call it a rag golem. He gestured proudly to the monstrosity that could level continents. So, what's your impression? Bongu, still trembling, muttered that it felt avant-garde, maybe Nordic surrealism. Gangjun beamed like a proud parent. Gangjun turned back to the dying frost giant. Anyway, after all this drama, it turns out the so-called guardian of Niflheim is just weak. Seriously, the loud ones always are. He flicked his wrist. The rag golem dissolved, flesh, bone, and magic dispersing into snowflakes. Bongu just stared, slack-jawed. He couldn't decide what was more terrifying, that Gangjun could summon such a monster, or that he could delete it with a gesture. Then the system flooded with notifications. Achievement unlocked, the one feared by all giants. Guardian of Jotun's Sanctuary Hrimthurst defeated. Gate collapse countdown, 1 hour. A rank title granted. New hostility detected. The giant, whose mouth was sewn shut, Rimtos Baka, has declared you enemy of all Jotun. Constellation lords of Niflheim are now hostile toward you. Gangjun sighed. Hostile, hostile, hostile. They're always hostile. They can come find me if they're that bothered. The system wasn't done. Summoning condition met. Personal vassal, Dream Demon Empress Iriel. Gangjun blinked once. That's new. He lifted his hand again. The air shimmered, tearing open as reality reluctantly obeyed him. A portal bloomed, violet, pulsing, and alive. From within it, a sleeping figure stirred, wrapped in dreamlight and power. As she stepped out, the frost itself bent. Her presence was soft yet crushing, the kind of beauty that made mortals forget their survival instinct. Bongu froze. For a man who just witnessed necromantic cosmology, this somehow shocked him more. Gangjun raised a hand in casual greeting. It's been a while, Iriel. Have you been well? She crossed the distance in an instant and embraced him. It has been too long, my lord. Iriel's eyes were glistening, still trying to wrap her head around the impossible sight. Gangjun, very much alive. 10 years plus, she had mourned him, assumed him gone to eternal rest, and yet here he was, standing in front of her like a stubborn ghost, refusing to stay dead. She squatted down closer, inspecting his face, worried about the dullness in his eyes and lips. Then, as if reading her intentions, Gangjun asked her to back off a little. Iriel yelped, apologized for getting too close, shuffled back, and dropped into a formal kneel, reciting her ceremonial respect like a robot on autopilot. Gangjun waved it off. Enough with the theatrics. How have you been? He asked, casual as ever. Iriel rattled off the usual updates. After he and the Archduke entered eternal rest, everyone had kept their posts. Nazgul, the former military minister, had taken over his duties and was holding the state together. Gangjun noted that with the faintest of nods, good, at least people weren't falling apart. He made her stand, and inwardly considered how Nazgul might be the best choice for emperor if he had to pick someone. Iriel then asked about Crapsley, the Archduke, who was meant to spend the eternal rest with him. Gangjun replied that Crapsley went to the mart with his sister. Gangjun didn't clarify, just waved it off, saving the rest of the conversation for the ride back home. Iriel agreed, muttering obediently. And just like that, Gangjun's mind was already 3 steps ahead, scheming. Bonggu, his one and only disciple, had no idea he was about to be handed yet another impossible task. Gangjun launched into it with all the subtlety of a cannon. Since Bonggu had snuck out, he needed to get back before his sister returned. The cleanup of the dungeon? That was now Bonggu's problem. With a casual lift of his hand, Gangjun counted down, disappeared in a flicker, leaving Bonggu staring like a deer in headlights, leaving a vortex of chaos and responsibility behind. Bonggu's mind spun. Somehow everything in the gate would have to sort itself out like last time because clearly, that was the kind of luck he had now. Cut to Seolim intersection station, the battlefield of the gate. Soldiers and management buru were already swarming. Director Mr. Choi arrived, immediately asking about the first assault team. Officers rattled off the S-rank tent details and then, almost like a punchline, mentioned a newly rising C-rank rookie deployed in the first wave. Mr. Choi raised a brow. A C-rank, really? The officer explained. This rookie had recently taken down an A-rank murderer from the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance. Mr. Choi's face tightened. He vaguely remembered the kid. Promising, too promising, maybe now just a corpse in the catastrophic gate. The officer's words reminded the director that these sacrifices weren't in vain. Secondary damage needed to be prevented at all costs. And yes, director, understood. Mr. Choi clenched his fists, furious inwardly, thinking about how many young lives had been gambled and sometimes lost. Suddenly, the director noticed that the gate was shrinking. He wondered if the Calamity Gate has been subdued. Then, among the staggering, exhausted hunters returning, one of the officers noticed that, amid all the hunters collapsed like broken action figures, one was still conscious. The director bolted over and froze in disbelief when he saw it was Bonggu, the one currently trending for reasons no one fully understood. Evening settled in, and Gwangju was at home half watching the news. Reports confirmed that the catastrophic level gates near Silim intersection station had been successfully suppressed at 4 p.m., and Mr. Choi, Management Bureau Director, praised the hunters for their sacrifices and risk-taking that had protected the nation's peace. Gwangju, meanwhile, was focused on a crisis of a different scale, dinner. He asked his sister when it would be ready. She said it was almost done, and asked if he was hungry. He said he wasn't exactly hungry, but wanted to use the meal as a tactical tool, which made perfect sense in the chaotic logic of parenting. His daughter, Seol, however, was a force of nature. She gleefully insisted on playing the same calculation play game again, ignoring any sense of time or parental sanity. Gwangju's frown deepened as he wondered how many rounds they had done now. 15? 20? Stopped counting after the third existential crisis. Now, Seol had elevated the customer game to a cruel art form. 1 mil caused 8,000 wons, and she was absolutely uncompromising. Gwangju tried to negotiate, but she slammed the counter with the finality of a small tyrant, declaring the world's rules. He handed over the money, resigned, and braced for the next round. Seol immediately demanded another, and the cycle of play continued. 3 hours later, Gwangju's body ached, his mind frayed, and Seol's enthusiasm remained unshaken. Meanwhile, Dulso and Ilriol watched from the sidelines, horrified at the patience required to endure this tiny tyrant's relentless energy. Mabas, not to be outdone in judgment, noted that the immortal bloodline clearly came with an innate obsession and cruelty. Doseo whispered to Iriel that they should call this torment the eons of calculation play. Mabas teased about Doseo's surprising skill in naming things, and Iriel agreed, declaring it a fitting title for this small but terrifying ritual. Gwangju suddenly realized that everyone had been observing him and Seol the entire time, sending a shiver through the group. Subin arrived, signaling that dinner was ready. Gwangju felt a momentary surge of hope for escape, but Seol was far from done. She refused to eat and insisted on playing more, forcing negotiations that left Gwangju exhausted and plotting subtle revenge that would never come. Eventually, Seol agreed to eat, but with a glint in her eyes that warned Gwangju she expected the game to resume immediately afterward. He accepted defeat, holding his chest with a mix of exhaustion, love, and terror. Food finally appeared, laid out generously, and Subin encouraged everyone to eat heartily. Gwangju was ready to claim even this small victory when Iriel approached, formally introducing herself as the former imperial household minister who had assisted his lord. Subin listened, half understanding, half bewildered, when Iriel began talking. She glanced at Gangjun, whispering that the girl might not be well. Gangjun calmly assured her otherwise, though Subin wasn't convinced. The body seemed fine, the mind less so. Curiosity made her ask how Iriel had even found him. Iriel started to answer, but Gangjun cut in smoothly, saying they'd met by chance earlier that day. He congratulated himself for returning home before Subin and forcing Iriel to transform. Her original form was not something he wanted showing up in the living room. Subin realized he'd gone out. Gangjun tried to downplay it. Just a trip to the grocery store, he said. Her tone sharpened when she mentioned the disaster-ranked gate earlier that day and demanded to know what he'd have done if caught in it. Gangjun accepted the scolding with quiet resignation. In the corner, Dulso scribbled everything down like a royal scribe documenting court drama, Lady Subin chastising His Majesty pretending remorse. Gangjun called his name twice. The spoon in Dulso's hand bent instantly. When asked how old he was, Dulso admitted to being over 12 centuries old. Gangjun observed that someone that ancient should have learned common sense by now. Subin intervened before things escalated. Turning back to Iriel, she asked where she was staying. The long pause gave her the answer before Iriel did. Nowhere. Horrified, Subin insisted she stay with them. Iriel refused, saying she couldn't impose on the imperial household. Subin countered with the unbreakable logic of elder sisters, either stay here or sleep outside. When Iriel hesitated, Subin blurted that it was an imperial order. The effect was immediate. Iriel dropped to her knees and pledged obedience. Subin froze, realizing her mistake, then awkwardly told her to rise. Gangjun told her to stop before she embarrassed herself further, but she could already see him holding back laughter. The tension broke when the news came on. Reports about the gate disappearing, Seoul barely escaping ruin. 16 hunters dead, 5 unconscious, 1 conscious. Subin quietly called it a miracle. Gangjun reassured her that as long as he lived, nothing like that would happen again. The screen showed Bangu surrounded by reporters. Subin smiled, amused that he'd made national news. Gangjun confirmed it was the same Bangu who'd visited them. When she asked why he hadn't said so, he simply replied that she never asked. Their peace didn't last. Seoul, finished with dinner, declared a new round of her favorite game, cash register. Gangjun froze. Summoning Iriel and Dulso, he issued an imperial decree. Find the creator of the Dr. Genius calculation playset, the villain behind this household torment. Both accepted the mission without question. Subin sighed, telling Dulso to ignore the order. She muttered that Gangjun's hatred for that toy had turned divine. Seoul cheerfully resumed her game, while Gangjun responded with the spirit of a man pleading for mercy. Later that night, Subin washed dishes alone, her thoughts heavy and quiet. She nearly jumped when Iriel appeared behind her with a tray, hesitantly asking if it would be demeaning to make a small request. Subin, softening, said she could just keep her company instead. As they worked, Iriel began talking, mostly about her master. Apparently he was casual, approachable, not one for strict titles. Subin listened, realizing with mild disbelief that Iriel meant Gangjun. She remembered him handing Seoul pocket money at a convenience store and calling it divine generosity. Iriel described how people once worshipped him. Temples, prayers, statues. Subin muttered that it sounded insane, maybe inspired by North Korea. Iriel explained that other religions had existed, but they faded not through force, but neglect. People simply stopped believing in old gods once Gangjun started giving them results. Ending wars, saving nations, ruling for centuries. Subin wasn't sure whether to be impressed or disturbed. When she asked if the gods resented him, Iriel said yes, envy, pride, celestial politics, then added that maybe it only mattered if those gods had ever truly been real. The phone rang, breaking the spell. It was the grocery store owner calling about Dulso. Subin listened, nodded, and hung up. Turning to Dulso, she told him he had an interview tomorrow, part-time, 3 p.m., same store. Dulso froze, eyes wide. To him, this wasn't a job interview. It was the first mission of his new empire. The next day, Mr. Choi, owner of a small store, found himself staring at an unusual applicant. In 10 years of running the place, He'd seen all kinds, but never a man in a full tuxedo for a part-time job. Choi Dol-so stood, as if he were about to swear an oath before royalty. Mr. Choi confirmed the name, trying to break the awkward air. Dol-so replied with military precision, sweat rolling down his face despite claiming he wasn't hot. The owner tried to reassure him. This was a convenience store, not a palace reception. He apologized for rescheduling the interview, explaining that his last employees had suddenly quit. He'd also heard from Subin that Dol-so had memory issues, but hoped it wouldn't interfere with work. Dol-so took all of this as a test of devotion. To him, this was his first mission in rebuilding his master's new world. When Mr. Choi described the job, simple morning shifts, restocking shelves, cleaning, Dol-so bowed deeply, swearing to dedicate himself until his body turned to dust. The owner simply stepped back, unsure if he was being mocked or worshipped. He told Dol-so not to overthink it, that punctuality mattered more than loyalty oaths. Dol-so insisted that this job was his greatest wish, and begged for the chance to prove himself. Mr. Choi, both startled and impressed, agreed to hire him on the spot. Dol-so thanked him with exaggerated sincerity, mentally noting that this human of the ruling class deserved utmost respect. Meanwhile, Bong-gu woke in a hospital room far nicer than his home. The sterile white walls, the faint scent of disinfectant, even the pillow felt expensive. Before he could wonder about the room's cost, a man in a suit entered and casually mentioned the figure, around 3 million won per day, discount negotiable. It was Seo Do-chol, bureau chief. He greeted Bong-gu, apologizing for the sudden visit, and said he came to ask about the disaster-ranked gate. Bong-gu nodded, still disoriented. Do-chol thanked him for his service, noting he was the only conscious survivor. For now, his account was all they had. Bong-gu gave a carefully edited version of events, describing the monstrous strength of the frost giant and Cho Ji-hoon's defeat, while quietly omitting any mention of Gong-jun. Do-chol listened intently, confirming that the evidence aligned with their findings. Ji-hoon's wounds suggested instant defeat under immense pressure. The only mystery left was who had slain the frost giant. Bong-gu claimed he didn't know, he had blacked out before the end. Satisfied, Do-chol turned to more pleasant matters. He praised Bong-gu for clearing a disaster-ranked gate with minimal casualties, a feat no nation had accomplished before. To reward him, the Bureau would cover his mother's hospital expenses, provide family-wide educational support, and include him in the upcoming memorial and awards ceremony. Bong-gu listened in disbelief, inwardly thanking Gong-jun for everything. Do-chol concluded by revealing that Bong-gu had been selected for a rank adjustment evaluation at year's end, a potential promotion. Bong-gu modestly replied that he was fine staying C rank, though the chief smiled as if he already disagreed. When Do-chol finally left, Bong-gu sat in silence, realizing these honors might become another burden he hadn't asked for. Two figures met on a rooftop. One had the information, a memorial and award ceremony for the disaster-ranked gate would be held in a few days. They both agreed it was the perfect stage to act in front of the public. Their plan, kidnap Bong-gu, expose the Bureau's failures, try to recruit him to the anti-Bureau alliance, and, if recruitment failed, kill him. Later, Bong-gu arrived at Gong-jun's apartment with bags and found Ariel at the sink, whisk in hand, ordering him to keep quiet. Dol-so hovered nearby, oddly theatrical in a store vest. When Bong-gu asked about the vest, Dol-so stammered into a quick bow and began playing shop clerk, proudly announcing he'd just been hired for the morning shift at the nearby Gu store. Bong-gu congratulated him, puzzled but not hostile. On the balcony, effectively a little cell, Gong-jun leaned against the rail while Seol, perched on a small chair, told everyone that her father was a thief and that Bong-gu would be going to jail. Seol's game left Bong-gu bewildered. Gong-jun treated the balcony like a joke prison, claiming he'd only been locked out for a few hours and was allowed bathroom breaks. Once inside, the mood shifted. Bong-gu explained his hospital visit and an encounter with the bureau chief. They praised him, offered benefits, and hinted at a year-end rank evaluation. He admitted he feared looking weak during the evaluation and asked Gong-jun to train him. Gong-jun asked Bong-gu to be realistic. Last-minute cram wouldn't transform a weak hunter into a strong one. Still, he offered a modest promise. He might be able to raise Bong-gu's score by 10 points. He pointed out the necromancer Bong-gu had previously subdued was worth roughly that much. Bonggu, nervous but hopeful, wondered if that would be enough. Gangjun smiled, half amused, half calculated. Bonggu excitedly replied, "Yes, it would be more than enough." If that's the case, Gangjun told him to come to his house by 8 a.m. starting tomorrow. Bonggu thanked him wholeheartedly, then recalled something. He told Gangjun that they said there'll be a big memorial service and award ceremony before the promotion exam. Gangjun asked him what exactly the memorial service and award ceremony were about. Bonggu replied, "It's to commemorate the hunters who died during the gate suppression, and an event to award medals to surviving hunters who contributed to the suppression." He said to himself that it's all thanks to Gangjun, so if he received any award money he should give it all to him. But as he was about to say something, someone interrupted. It was Dulso. He excitedly congratulated Bonggu, telling him that it looked like he was finally on the path to success. Bonggu, surprised by his sudden appearance, asked what he meant. Dulso told him he'd be receiving a Medal of Honor in front of everyone. If that's not success, what is? Gangjun told him it's true, and that he should take lots of commemorative photos with his siblings while he's at it. He'll have to show them all to his mother when she recovers. Though Gangjun was right, Bonggu told him that he'd probably have to go alone. His siblings' college entrance exam was coming up soon. Although she made a fuss about going together, he told her to study since she's a senior. His mother would want his siblings to get into a good university more than take photos. Gangjun thought about it. He was always alone too. His sister, who worked like the head of the household, was always busy and looked exhausted, so he couldn't even ask her to come to his graduation. He then told Bonggu that he'll go with him because, on a good day, being alone would make him feel restless. Bonggu was happy. Gangjun told him if he's that happy he shouldn't just say it. He should show it with goods. Bonggu was about to say something again about the awards ceremony day, but the little cutie saw Princess Sophie, her favorite character. Bonggu bought it for her. She was happy, so she asked Bonggu if he wanted to play with Princess Sophie. Bonggu agreed. Gangjun then asked Seol what about him that is still locked up. The little girl walked and climbed on her chair and replied, "No, thieves go to jail." Gangjun, though pissed, couldn't argue with her. Instead, he unleashed his anger on Bonggu. He asked him how dare he bribe the guard. Bonggu told him it's not a bribe, he should just call it bail money at least. He then told Gangjun he'd see him again on his uncertain release date. Suddenly, Gangjun noticed a fly flying past him. He immediately killed it since he sensed a tiny amount of magic in it. He wondered where it came from. At the same time, somewhere outside, on a bench, were the same boy and girl from earlier. The guy, while reading a paper, told her that the communication had been cut. The scout he sent was neutralized. The targets seemed to have noticed they were being monitored. The girl told him that it seemed like Bonggu was no ordinary person. The guy agreed. For a C rank to defeat the necromancer they carefully raised without even getting injured, it proved he was strong. If they could recruit him somehow to their side, he'd definitely strengthen their force. The guy was rank 8 in the Anti-Management Bureau Alliance. Former S-rank Management Bureau hunter, Insect Master Kim Do-hoon. The girl was rank 12. Former S-rank hunter, torture technician Lee Hee-ji. Anyway, the guy thought to himself that he underestimated the target. Scout insects move with extremely little mana, yet he noticed. That means Bonggu's mana sensitivity is at least S rank or higher. His motor performance and combat ability are also likely at least rank a hunter level. He stood up, then told her they should head back for now, walking into a portal. The next day, Gangjun gave Bonggu something and told him to wear it from now on. Just like Goku, who wore super heavy-weighted clothing, then took it off in critical moments and became impossibly fast. Bonggu knew what he was talking about, but he asked if such an outdated training method would really be effective. Gangjun told him it appears in lots of other places too, fighting while wearing heavy stuff, then taking it off and getting stronger when about to lose. Bonggu was hesitant. He asked if his joints wouldn't give out first since he's a magic type. Gangjun took it from him, telling him not to do it if he didn't want to. He spent tens of thousands of won to buy it, and he didn't even appreciate it. There are tons of kids dying to get trained by him. If he lined them up, they'd circle the earth a few times. Bonggu immediately apologized and decided to go with the idea. Shortly after, he ended up wearing 4 of them, 2 on his hands and 2 on his legs. He had no idea what's so good about it, plus it was way heavier than he thought. At minimum, each one must be at least 20 kilograms. Now, Gangjun told him to go play with Seol. He will die if he makes him say it twice. The little girl also agreed. With the loads on his body, as soon as he knelt down to play with her, he felt a sharp pain in his back. Crouching made the load heavier. The first game she chose to play was the eons of calculation play Dalso mentioned to him. Now he was beginning to feel the weight of the load. He never expected just sitting and picking up items to be that hard. His hands felt like they'd fall off any time. Now he realized how weak he was. He wondered, with teary eyes, if he could support his family with such a weak body and obtain the elixir to cure his mother. So he decided to strengthen his resolve. If he can't endure such a thing, he won't accomplish anything. And so 2 hours passed, he was still playing with her. They played all different kinds of games. At that moment, his body was as if it no longer is, but he couldn't refuse the little girl. But that wasn't the end. After childcare came household chores training. This torture continued repeatedly for quite a number of days while still carrying the weight bags. Just like that, 1 week passed. He could see that his body was getting more exhausted every day. He thought Gangjun must have a purpose for putting him through all that. Maybe he's testing his patience and perseverance. He thought that's the only explainable reason, since there are actually a lot of stories like that. Masters don't easily pass on their secrets. He concluded that Gangjun wasn't testing how far he could go. And so, another week later, Gangjun told him it's already the end of the month. When did he say his promotion was? Bonggu replied, early December. Gangjun never expected time to fly so fast while they were messing around. He needed to start the real training soon. He then asked him what day the medal memorial and awards ceremony were. Bonggu quickly checked his phone and told him it's tomorrow. Gangjun told him they should go to the awards ceremony first, then start proper training after. Happy, he asked Gangjun if he finally passed his test. Gangjun had no idea what test he was talking about, but Bonggu thought Gangjun was testing his patience and perseverance for the past 2 weeks. Well, Gangjun did it just for fun, but he decided to let him think whatever he wanted. So he told Bonggu he had worked hard, so they'll start training tomorrow. Same time, Anseong City, Gyeonggi Province. Inside a bar, Dahun told Heiji that the operation is right around the corner and the target is strong. Behind them were his men. He told them that when the awards ceremony begins tomorrow and the target Kim Bonggu steps onto the podium, they'll cause chaos, kidnap the target, and disappear. The next day, Gangjun put on a corporate dress, but he complained about how uncomfortable it was. Subin told him he looked good in it, then asked if he was going with the lady. Gangjun replied yes, Dalso has to go to work at the convenience store. She told him all right, he should make sure to tell Bonggu congratulations for her. He told her okay, then told Iriel they should go. As he was about to leave, Seol wished him goodbye in a very polite manner. Her cuteness really touched his heart. Subin was also impressed at how good she was. She told Gangjun that this morning's children's TV program had content about greeting etiquette. It's one of the children's programs he loved when he was still young, but Gangjun couldn't remember all of it since it's been so long. He then patted his daughter, told her he'll be back. Sometime later he arrived at the venue. It was so crowded he saw how happy and lively the place was. He was speechless because he had not experienced such peace for a long time. At first he thought it was insensitivity to danger, but actually they're hoping the misfortune on the news won't happen to them, trying hard to believe hunters will guarantee their safety. So they're just acting out a stolen peace. What a shifty world, he commented, but seeing everyone gathered he realized it must be a bigger event than he thought. Bonggu told him that the catastrophe-level gate suppression is a historic event for humanity. He heard many famous hunters are attending too, because successfully suppressing a catastrophe-level gate with such minimal damage is the first case worldwide. Thanks to that, overseas countries are showing interest too. Gangjun looked at the hunters standing over there. Most are pathetic and few are barely decent. He then asked Bonggu if he was sick or something for drinking so much water. Bonggu replied no. Actually, he's representing all surviving hunters and going up on the podium alone today. The others are still unconscious, or can't attend. A security man then told him that the memorial and award ceremony is about to start, so he should head to the seat he showed him. Bonggu agreed, then told Gangjun he'd be going, and that Gangjun could go to the seat he mentioned earlier. Minutes later, inside the hall, a man was talking boring shit about the management bureau and all. Gangjun was already feeling bored, but he became focused again as they announced that Bonggu, representing all surviving hunters, will be reading a eulogy for the hunters who died during the suppression. Seeing him walk up the stage, Gangjun deemed him to look like a robot. But then he noticed bloodlust. Dame goes for Iriel. She told him that it seems like they're plotting something sinister. Gangjun agreed. He wondered what those bastards are trying to do. Recalling the peaceful atmosphere from earlier made him worried. He said to himself that there must be those who try to seize everything with power. And their purpose is obvious, though it's not his business. Recalling his daughter, he doesn't like it. He hates playing half-assed hero. If something happens, the hunters will step up. Still, at least tonight's dinner with his family. He wants Seol to be there with a smiling face. So he stood up. He didn't feel like watching anymore. He then told Imperial Household Minister Iriel to listen. From now on, they'll stop those plotting something sinister. She should kill on sight, but she should keep the leader alive for interrogation. She should suppress them with full force. Now, above the roof, all guards there were taken down by Dahoon's insects. He called through the walkie-talkie, telling them that all rooftop occupation has been completed. He sat down on a corpse, then reports started coming in. Mechanical room occupation team just completed occupation. Explosive installation team just finished installing at 8 locations. Intrusion team also ready. The moment the target Bongu steps onto the podium, they execute the operation. Dahoon said to himself that the plan was to simultaneously detonate bombs installed at 8 locations in the building. Then the elite intrusion team storms the convention hall. Indiscriminate massacre while kidnapping the target. He'll use snipers turned into magic parasite hosts to block support forces' routes. He deemed it a perfect operation derived from hundreds of simulations, so failure probability converges to 0. Someone then told him that the target is going up on stage now. With that, he told them to start the mission. But then something started going wrong. His men started screaming. He thought the waiting room infiltration team got discovered. He was shocked as the screaming became intense. There was no more response from the mechanical room infiltration team. Another response came in. Explosives installation team on the verge of annihilation. All bombs have been disarmed. Dahoon couldn't believe it. The team assembled from only the elite were annihilated or lost communication in less than a minute. He thought about it. The first subordinate hit by the enemy was the one infiltrated as staff in the convention hall waiting room. Each floor of this building has about 20,000 pyong, so to move from the convention hall waiting room to the mechanical room would require at least several minutes minimum. It would take even more time to move unnoticed. He wondered if it means that at least dozens are moving in several groups. He thought the management bureau noticed and moved, but he deemed that not to be the case, since the management bureau is an organization that prioritizes capture. And even if they notice their operation, there's no possibility they'd respond in such an aggressive way. Then he wondered who it is. Another response then came in. The girl told him that an uninvited guest came to their side too, so can she kill her? Hearing she was a lady, he asked if the enemy who went to the intrusion team is a woman. She replied, "Yeah, I've been wanting to torment a pretty lady for a long time." Immediately, he shouted for her to hold on. The lady is incredibly strong, but she didn't listen. He then asked her how many enemies in total. She replied, "For now, 1 person." He thought about it. Underground aquarium, communication with the intrusion team also cut off. Just 1 person is pushing back not only the intrusion team members, but even Lee Heiji. So he wondered who on earth it is. Should he report them? Another response then came in. It was a voice that he didn't recognize. So he asked the person, "Who are you?" The person replied, started saying random shit. It pissed off Dahoon, so he told the person that he's warning him if he doesn't properly reveal his identity and affiliation now, he'll let him die comfortably. The person replied, "Do you really think you can kill me?" Then suddenly the rooftop door broke open. It was Gangjun. He was pissed. He told Dahoon to try and kill him then. The girl, surprised, asked Iriel to hold on as she walked back. She never expected Iriel to be insanely strong. She defeated all the soldiers by herself. Acting confident, she asked Iriel who the heck she is. Iriel gradually loosened her hairband, told her name, Minister of the Imperial Household, and said she owed her great thanks for her recklessness. Thanks to her, she can serve her lord again after a very long time. So, in gratitude, she'll remember her name. Her energy rose, her killing intent vicious. Heiji was surprised to hear her name since she had never heard it before. Not even hunters from overseas had that name. Iriel activated her weapon and asked Heiji for her name. Heiji told her she's going to be shocked when she hears it, then introduced herself as the torture specialist, Lee Heiji. Hearing the word torture, Iriel laughed. She told Heiji that she herself is quite skilled in torture, but it seems she's way too rude, and it looks like she needs some training, so she'll personally teach her a lesson. Heiji charged forward like someone in a frenzied state, telling Iriel that she'd better forget about dying peacefully. She then swung at Iriel. but Ariel easily dodged it. She struck continuously at Ariel, thinking she had the advantage in close combat since Ariel was only dodging her attacks. Ariel wasn't interested in her boring strikes, so she decided to get serious. She activated Imperial Etiquette. First rule, silence. She struck at Hiji. It was a direct hit, making Hiji groan in pain. Ariel told her never to raise her voice. She deactivated her mana weapon and turned it into a dagger, activating Imperial Etiquette. Second rule, audience preparation. Swiftly, she struck from a distance. Hiji looked around to see where the attack would land, but to her surprise, her hands were struck, her tendons cut, disarming her. Ariel told her that to have an audience with His Majesty, she has to tidy her appearance and disarm completely. Swiftly again, she cut the tendons in her legs, making her fall to the ground, crippled. Fear in her eyes, Hiji begged to be spared, apologizing. Ariel told her it looks like she's finally learning some manners, and she looked pretty cute now that she's behaving. Hiji begged again to be spared, but Ariel angrily grabbed her hair, telling her to be silent, just as she told her before. Now that she's ready to have an audience with His Majesty, she'll have to learn Imperial Audience. Third rule, when granted an audience with His Majesty, she should take great care not to gaze above his knees. Then, she slit her throat. Ariel stood up, called the dead Hiji a naughty child, and told her to be grateful that she's the one accompanying their lord. If their lord had been with Archduke Crapsley instead, she wouldn't have closed her eyes so easily. Now, Gangjun adjusted his tie and asked the guy if he's really threatening to kill him. The guy told Gangjun that it looks like he's ignoring his warnings. From now on, regrets won't help him. The guy then sent his bug-controlled humans to attack Gangjun. Seeing the bugs, Gangjun asked the guy if he's the one who sent bugs to his house, and asked him why. Speechless for a moment, the guy realized that Gangjun is the one who killed the bugs, not Bongu. At the same time, he hid his hand behind his back, performing a spell. Seeing he had no intention of answering, Gangjun told him not to worry. He'll talk after dying a few times. Immediately, the guy commanded his bug-controlled humans to shoot at Gangjun. The shots were fast and brutal, attacking all the vital parts of his body. For a moment, he thought he had won, but as the smoke faded, he had no idea where Gangjun had gone. Gangjun stepped forward and asked the guy what's with his petty damage. Didn't he say he'd kill him? The guy, shocked, had no idea what was going on. Gangjun, eyes ready to kill, told the guy he'd take those corpses as a gift and make good use of them since he doesn't really like getting his hands dirty. He activated his aura, sharp and domineering, and his energy seeped into the dead humans. The guy bled from his nose as all the parasites he spread got wiped out in an instant. But what he deemed even crazier was the insane amount of mana Gangjun emitted. He had no idea what was going on. It seemed like he was brought into another domain, more like a domain skill. He looked back, frightened. He saw skeletons. He realized they're not just skeletons, they're on a whole different level, unlike anything he had ever seen. What's more shocking was that Gangjun wasn't someone he could handle at all, for him to be able to control skeletons of such caliber. He deduced Gangjun to be above the upper tier, even more than a top-tier necromancer. But he had no idea how a necromancer could have such physical strength and movement. He went on his knees, as there was no hope for him. Resistance was pointless. With a sharp tone, Gangjun asked him if the sight he's seeing is really scary. He should feel like dying would be better. The guy knelt, blood dripping from his nose due to the suffocating pressure from Gangjun, his mental world 70% collapsing. Gangjun told him not to worry, he's not going to let him die easily. Until he gets all the answers he wants, he'll keep bringing him back to life over and over. He then sent his undead to attack the guy, since seeing is believing. He wanted to give him a taste of death first. The guy was stabbed in the chest, blood splattered, and he screamed in pain. Then, a few minutes later, he opened his eyes. Gangjun asked him sincerely with a pressuring tone how it feels to die once. It's not exactly pleasant, right? Those corpses you gifted me probably felt the same. He told the guy to just spill everything and rest easy, or he'd face far more than this. The guy stuttered once as he was about to speak, but Gangjun decided to kill him once again since it seemed like he was hesitating to talk. With a threatening tone, he asked the guy if he wanted to keep dying until he felt like talking. If that's the case, he shouldn't worry. He'll keep reviving him. Minutes later, after long-term torture, Gangjun discovered that the so-called Anti-Bureau Federation is targeting Bongu. Putting together everything he said, he realized that the organization is made up of some pretty shrewd people. He thought to himself that if the rookie hunter everyone praises as a new hero joins the villains, it would throw people into fear and anxiety. And if Bangu was to refuse their offer and got brutally murdered along with everyone in the ceremony, doubts about the Bureau's capability and effectiveness would spring up everywhere. In his world where his princess lives, there should be nothing but meadows, so there's no way he can let the organization run wild. Usually, with types like them, if you take out their boss, they crumble easily. And since the guy is done for too, as now isn't his 15th return, he told the guy for the last time to tell him about his boss's location and everything. The guy is speechless, completely traumatized. Gang Jun realized there should be some kind of spell preventing him from speaking, but he decided to try anyway. He said to the guy that he won't revive him if uttering a forbidden spell could kill him since he doesn't have the hobby of repeating pointless work. Hearing he won't be revived and undergo such mental torture again, the man thanked Gangjun and decided to spill the beans, but his brain exploded before he could speak. Gangjun stood up and sighed. Since there's nothing he can do for now, he decided to wipe out any members of the Anti-Management Bureau they see. Ariel then came to the roof. With a bow, she told him they were all finished. He complimented her and said they should go back. She asked what they should do about the bodies. Gangjun nonchalantly told her he doesn't know. He's sure they'll handle it. They should go, they should at least congratulate Bangu, maybe take a commemorative photo or something. At the same time, Bangu was being given the Medal of Honor. Among the audience was the Solitude Guild Master, S-rank hunter ranked 5th, nicknamed Black Wolf, Kang Sung-yoon. He sat with his legs crossed, saying that Bangu doesn't seem all that impressive to call him a new hero, so there's no need to recruit him just yet. Solitude's Vice Guild Master, S-rank hunter ranked 6th, nicknamed Iron Man, Ko Duyol, told Sung-yoon that Bangu looks weak and scrawny. There's not a shred of manliness in him. But then they were surprised as they got messages at the same time. They realized they had uninvited guests. Moments later, they arrived at the rooftop and couldn't believe their eyes. They looked around, wondering what exactly happened. Duyol saw a corpse and told Sung-yoon that it looks like one of those guys. Sung-yoon agreed and told him to look under their necks. There's also the tattoo, it seems to be executive level. He said to himself that it's surprising to see an executive-level murderer from the Anti-Management Bureau die such a gruesome death. Then they got an even more shocking call. Dozens of bodies belonging to Anti-Management Bureau members were found throughout the building. Especially by the underground aquarium. Most bodies were there, and one of them was suspected to be Executive Interrogation Officer Lee Hee-ji. Sung-yoon was surprised. Not only dozens of Anti-Management Bureau members, but also an executive with S-class hunter-level strength was killed, and in secret for that matter. They had no idea what is going on, so he decided to report to the bureau director. Gangjun and Ariel arrived at the auditorium. Though they're busy, he decided to wait for the ceremony to be over. Speechless, he stood, looking at Bangu, who didn't know he's in big trouble. The Anti-Management Bureau is targeting him. Though he can't keep helping him forever, now that he thinks about it, he realized Bangu has gotten screwed because of him. But he deemed that not to be the case since he's going to make him stronger anyway. So the rest is up to fate. Starting tomorrow, he'll push him hard enough to feel like dying. But that's still better than actually dying. Sometime later, at home, Marbus was sitting, watching television. There he saw a cat being chased after stealing fish again. He said to himself that unlike him, living such a hard life is terrible. He should just eat whatever special meal Immortal prepares after her shopping, and she takes him for a walk every single day. And if he gets dirty, she gives him a thorough bath. He smiled as he deemed the life of a pet to not be different from the life of an emperor, though Immortal is the sworn enemy who wiped out his demon clan and exiled him to another dimension. At first, he thought about waiting for a chance at revenge. But compared to endless power struggles with his brothers, he deemed his current life much better. Though there's just one problem. The baby Immortal is so persistent since she has been wanting to kiss him, but the Immortal will kill him if he lets her. But seeing her now, he wondered why the Immortal princess hasn't asked for kisses. Maybe she's sick of him now. He deemed that a bit sad, but he pretended to be happy about it. Gangjun finally arrived home. Bangu decided he'd take care of tonight's meal, but Gangjun told him to get the Hanwoo beef set next time since his sis said they'd be having marinated ribs today. He then saw Marbus and asked what he was doing there. Marbus told him he had been desperately waiting for his return. Gangjun asked him why he's actually acting more and more like a dog these days, and where his sister is. Marbus replied that she went to the market. And isn't he the one who commanded him to act just like a real dog? He then told Gangjun there was an awful tragedy. The baby immortal nearly took a bad fall off the sofa, but he acted quickly and stopped it. If it wasn't for him, the baby immortal might have been greatly injured. Gangjun took a drink and told him he did well. Marbas was disappointed since that wasn't the kind of reply he was expecting. Gangjun saw his disappointment and decided to give him a new name. He thought about it. Marbas was excited he'd be getting a new name. Even Iriel was looking forward to it. Gangjun finished thinking and confidently decided to call him Gaedong. In English, it's translated as piece of shit. Bangu was surprised by the name. He deemed such naming to be cruel, even towards a demon. But surprisingly, Marbas seemed to love it, and even Iriel loved the name. Seeing they're all weird people, he told Gangjun he'd go do the housework now. But Gangjun told him nowhere. He should eat dinner, go home, rest, and be back by 8 a.m. Seeing that his training would finally begin, he excitedly told Gangjun that he'd put his whole being into receiving his teachings. Gangjun told him he won't be the one teaching him. Iriel will be giving the special training. He shouldn't worry. If he dies, he'll take responsibility and revive him for old time's sake. Dumbfounded, Bangu asked why he would die. Gangjun nonchalantly told him that sometimes that just happens. If he revives him, he'd make a good Dullahan. Bangu shivered to hear he'd be turned into a headless monster, into something so ominous. Iriel brutally told him it's because he's ugly. So far, her master has always revived the ugly ones as Dullahans, so he should just shut up and follow orders. At that time, Bangu didn't know it yet, that if he actually died, he might become a Dullahan. And so, an hour later, Gangjun was carrying Seol. He was happy seeing her. Marbas sighed and said to himself that immortal loses all sense when he sees the baby immortal. Gangjun then asked her what she did for fun today. Seol told him she played Calculator King, so he told her they should play. Gangjun immediately went speechless. Sometime later, Bangu came to visit. It was now 60 days until the hunter rank promotion exam. As he entered, he greeted Elder Dolso with a polite good morning, and asked if he had slept well. Dolso quickly motioned for him to lower his voice, whispering that Her Highness the Princess hadn't coughed yet, so it would be wise to stay quiet. Then he mentioned that he heard through the grapevine that Bangu would begin his short-term, special training under Lady Iriel today. Bangu confirmed, a bit uneasy. Somehow, it ended up that way. Dolso nodded and said Iriel's training methods were known for being extremely efficient, perhaps even more beneficial than being trained directly by the Lord himself. That line made Bangu pause. Which Lord? He wondered silently. In his memory, Iriel had always seemed like a cute, kind girl, the kind of person he'd rather protect than fight. He assumed her training would be light and harmless. Dolso quickly shattered that illusion. He said the Anuk's empire was a place where strength ruled above all, a land where only the strong survived. Yet, Lady Iriel had risen to become one of the 5 ministers of that empire. Facing her directly, most wouldn't last even a few moves before collapsing. Bangu sighed, saying he understood. But still, he would have preferred being trained by his brother, Gangjun. Dolso chuckled and said now that he thought about it, the Lord's decision, Gangjun's decision, was truly wise. Curious, Bangu asked what he meant. Dolso replied that among all soldiers personally trained by the Lord, not one had ever been injured. That made Bangu tilt his head. So his training wasn't that intense? Dolso smiled faintly. Quite the opposite, he said. Every single one of them died during the training. So yes, no injuries, just deaths. Bangu froze. He couldn't believe his ears. Just then Lady Iriel arrived, apologizing to the Duke for the interruption. She announced that the time for training had come, and she must take the human with her. The Duke nodded, telling her to go ahead. Bangu, however, was still rooted to the spot. Iriel glanced back and asked why he was just standing there. Snapping out of his daze, he quickly saluted and followed her. As they left, Dolso sighed to himself, realizing he'd forgotten to mention one small detail, that the survival rate of Iriel's trainees was about 50%. Even if Bangu did die, the Lord could just resurrect him. No big deal. They arrived at Guanak Mountain Park. The area was deserted, the cliffs quiet under the misty afternoon. Lady Iriel turned to him and said they'd begin with one-on-one combat training. Bangu blinked, a bit unsure, then muttered that she was probably overestimating him. Moments later, she was already moving. Bangu's attacks were dodged like she was playing a rhythm game on easy mode. Then, before he could even blink, she lunged forward, their foreheads colliding with a loud bang. Bangu went flying. Right now, he could only be compared to a newborn calf, standing up for the first time, trembling, and immediately falling again. Ariel watched him with mild disgust. "Human, are you down already?" she muttered. Meanwhile, at home, Gongjun was enduring his own kind of nightmare. He had played the same game with his daughter thousands of times. Even in her sleep, she mumbled, "Daddy again! It's 8001! Gangjun groaned. His suffering was on another battlefield entirely. Back to the training ground, Bonggu lay sprawled out on the floor, whispering inwardly that this was the 26th round of torture, not training. Ariel calmly healed his bruises and told him to stand. Then she started again. By the 27th round, Bonggu decided to try blocking. He barely managed before she twisted midair, redirected her strike, and smashed into his ribs instead. He crashed down, wheezing. How can such a small hand hit like a warhammer? Ariel sighed at his weakness and said they should end the hand-to-hand part there. Bonggu lit up with relief, until she added that they'd immediately begin reflex training. He froze. Wait, 2 whole months of this? And this was only physical training. Magic hadn't even started yet. Later that night, Bonggu finally returned home. As he lay on his bed, Lady Ariel appeared beside him, saying he should rest. He eyed her suspiciously. She's actually letting me go? Maybe they were skipping magic training for the day. He sighed in relief. Once he fell asleep, Ariel quietly placed a hand on his forehead and cast a dream spell. In his dream, Bonggu found himself in a strange yet familiar place, his old school grounds. Then he noticed Ariel again, this time in full demon form. "Now," she said, "we begin magic training." Bonggu's jaw dropped. "Wait, this is a dream." But she explained that since she was the Empress of Dream Demons, she could control dreams themselves. This, she said, was the perfect environment for endless training. Without warning, she began casting spells, telling him to use every part of his body in combat while mixing magic into his attacks. Realization hit him like a truck. He had to train even while asleep. Ariel confirmed it, saying that even if he died here, he'd just respawn instantly. "So don't worry," she added. "That's even worse," Bonggu screamed, right before she blasted him with a bolt of mana to the chest. He yelped. It hurt. "Wait, isn't this a dream?" Ariel replied calmly. "If you can't feel pain, how will you take the training seriously?" Bonggu groaned. "You could have just told me that first." But before he could finish complaining, another wave of lightning struck. He collapsed, wondering how long he could possibly survive this kind of torture,